The tape, let's grind. Shut up. The tape. Let's grind. The tape. We do a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape. Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
The tape.
UGA game day, boy, we ball out. Pull up, put the whole conference in the doghouse. Leave them 6 feet, see me on the win streak. All-star status, go coach, and the bench deep. Offense on 10, how we run it? Your best ain't nothing, we gon' send them boys punting. Black and red, got them dead on arrival. Defense hunkered down for the tie. Hey, you don't want it with the dogs. Found guy on it, you don't want it with my dog. Break it down, play by play, that's the day-to-day. They know we ain't come to play, boy, it's UGA. Kirby Smart, I cannot play the fool. Back to back, we did not come to lose. Back to back, like we got something to prove. Pay your dues, dog nation on the move. What's up?
We do a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
The tape.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Shut up. Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The
Shut
tape.
up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
Shut up. The tape.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the Film Guy Network on a fabulous Monday evening. We've got an absolutely slam-packed, loaded show for you guys tonight. We got Week 7 reactions. We're going to recap all of the weekend's chaos. We have one pivotal question tonight. One very pivotal question. What is that question? I don't know. You're going to have to find out. I've got film notes for you guys as well tonight, where we were right, where we were wrong. We're going to preview another great weekend of college football on our doorsteps. But I want to open with this right here. I don't think they could have timed the 12-team playoff expansion any better. Now, if you're a Florida State fan, listen to this. I would be like, all right, man, this guy, screw him. Maybe if you're a Florida State fan, last year would have been ideal. But man, in a sport where parity and the lack of true elite football teams is at an all-time high, they couldn't have timed this better for a 12-team playoff expansion. It's been a rough couple of years, to be honest with you, for anybody labeled college football decision maker. Any president of the NCAA, anybody making and establishing new rules in the world of college football. It's been a bad couple of years for the PR nightmare, right? Everyone's been crapping on every decision known to man with regards to college football, and I felt necessary to be out here giving you some kudos for this one, man. Sure, our sport has become more commercialized than ever before because of the college football decision makers. The commercial breaks are longer than ever before. Money, impacts the players' decisions at a higher rate than ever before. And sure, there have certainly been times over the last 2 or 3 years where either covering the sport or watching the sport or being a fan of the sport, you've probably felt a little bit gross, right? You probably felt a little bit gross at times throughout this, series of events in the world of college football. But this sport is more unpredictable than ever before, man. There was a reason it was always said any given Sunday, right? That saying was never any given Saturday. The reason being is parity and chaos, maybe chaos, but parity hasn't been something that's been a staple of our Saturdays in the world of college football ever, really. It's kind of been like the same list of teams for, extended period of time. There's been a select group, and maybe there still is a select group, but it feels like it has expanded a little bit. It seems nowadays we are truly, at least this year, at an era of college football where any given Sundays has rolled over into any given Saturdays, man. Any given Saturday could be your Saturday where your team is favored by multiple touchdowns and ends up in a cheek clincher into the fourth quarter. An absolutely loaded show for you guys today, and an absolutely loaded weekend of college football yet again. We're going to have another one this weekend where, potentially somebody could absolutely go down. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you like, subscribe, and rate, review. And we got a great one for you guys playing tonight. Boys, how we doing today?
Oh, man.
Doing good.
Doing fantastic.
Doing great. Did you enjoy your Sunday off? Did you watch Sunday's reaction shows?
I usually sit down and watch Sunday reactions. I caught the first end of it, but not the tail end of it.
I caught a little bit of it.
So you guys are like me. If I ain't a part of it, I ain't watching it. Be honest.
Well, no, I usually do watch Sunday reactions.
I definitely don't tune in as much.
That's me. If I ain't on it, I ain't watching it. I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't even watch my own stuff. I've done 4 hours of content today. You think I've watched any content today? No.
Yeah, that's 8 hours of work right there. That's doing it then watching.
A good bit, yeah. A good bit. And the prep for the work. But, you ain't got to worry about me. We out here grinding. It is a loaded show for you guys tonight. We're going to get into our Week 7 reactions. Going to recap all of the weekend's chaos. Like I said, we do have one pivotal question. I'm going to tease it for you. That question: is there anybody good in college football? That's the question that you know for a fact. Is there anybody good in college football? I'll give you my answer in just a little bit. I've got film notes. Like I said, I went and watched Tennessee's offense today. If you haven't watched that film breakdown and you're a Tennessee fan watching tonight, you need to, okay? There's a lot to be learned in that film study. I'm trying to find this. Here we go. In that film study, I also broke down Georgia's defense today. We've got notes on that in the local hour. We're going to preview the weekend ahead. But first and foremost, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at BetUS. BetUS, if you're looking for a new book this season, is the place to be. They have a 150% sign-up bonus on your 25% on the next two, up to $2,000 using code YouTube150. Again, code YouTube150. You need to be heading over there to BetUS and hanging out with our friends over there. That's where we do all our plays. My man is down bad on the plays of the week. Are you going to give us one this week? Are you going to give us a best play?
Yeah, I'll give you one this week.
Probably tomorrow?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, dial it up. Get it ready so the folks can go win some money. Over on BetUS, again, promo code YouTube150. Please, please, please support the people who support us, okay? And that's the best way to do it. Heading over to BetUS using promo code YouTube150. Let's get after it, boys. Let's start with the recap. Texas and Oklahoma is where we're going to start. 34-3, boys. I felt like this football game could have been 50-3.
This game played out exactly how we hoped it would, in that Texas was just going to be able to kind of lean on them offensively. Oklahoma was going to have no answers on their offensive ends, and it would just be a pretty much Texas win the game by however many points they wanted to. We kind of hope that, hey, maybe Oklahoma's defense can make it mucky for them, kind of get some turnovers, create some offensive points opportunities for that offense, and it just never worked out that way. So
Yeah, the game got started off for you in a great way if you were Oklahoma, because you forced a turnover and you put your offense immediately in a winnable position. You don't cash in, though. You have to settle for three. And from that point on in the football game, you just couldn't get anything going for you. It was because your defense put your offense in a scoring position. That was how you got score. That's how you got on the board. And once that didn't happen for the rest of the game, then you were just shit out of luck after that.
This is, and I sat there and watched. I haven't taken the notes on it, but I sat there and watched the Texas offense, and I'm going to make my own film cut-ups on it. So I'm kind of like skimming through Oklahoma's offense because Lord knows I wasn't going to sit there and watch it. But my God, did this offense, not only were they anemic, not only did they not do a very good job of moving the football or maintaining possession at all, but they put their defense in horrible positions. Guys, Texas had scoring drives that started on the Oklahoma 43-yard line, 12-yard line, 45-yard line, 13-yard line, and 32-yard line. Texas had 5 scoring drives that started inside the Oklahoma 45. It's impossible to win a football game like this. You're going to lose 100% of the football games you present opportunities like this to any offense, let alone Texas. Now, Texas earned those. 2 of those were turnovers. 2 of those were massive punt returns, and 1 of them was a turnover on downs. But if you're that bad in every facet of football, not named defense, your defense is going to therefore be bad as well because you're going to give up points when you do this, man. You gave them points essentially.
Giving a team 2 opportunities inside your own 15,
diabolical.
That's just asking to get your butt whooped on a Saturday, and that's exactly what happened. So it is a wonder that Texas didn't hang 50 on these jokers because they were giving them every reason to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there was no avenue Oklahoma wins this game putting up 3 offensive points, none whatsoever. So you don't have to look hard to find out why Texas was able to win this game.
I mean, I thought the crazy thing was Texas handled this football game as well as it did, or as well as they did, and Quinn Ewers did not play very well.
He did not.
Did not play very well. If you really watch that tape, there are lots of yards left on the field in the first half.
A lot of misses.
Yep. A lot of why are you turning that down? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you looking at that? A couple of balls, like there was one ball to Isaiah Bond on a streaker right down the middle, 2 safety split, and he throws it, 10 yards short of the guy. So
yeah,
there are areas of growth even in a football game in which they completely dominated.
How does this make you feel about Brent Venables though?
Because I want to talk about this first before we get into the Brett discussions. I'd be pissed off if I remember that defense.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that right now. There's nothing worse than when your defense feels like they're good enough to be a national title contender and your offense can't surmise anything. Not only that, puts you in bad spots. I feel bad for guys like Danny Stutzman. I feel bad for guys like Billy Bowman. Mm-hmm. I feel bad for NFL caliber football players who are playing really high caliber defense and they can't get a lick of help from the other side of the ball. Now, I don't want to give too much I don't want to shit down Brent and the offensive coordinator staff too much. They were down their top 5 wide receivers. You do that to anybody, they're going to look anemic, but they've looked anemic all year.
Yeah, and the thing about the defense, too, of feeling that type of way is, given the stats you just gave and the fact that you only surrendered 34 points,
incredible.
You would feel that you're in a winning position with most teams. With the team with an SEC offense in most case scenarios, giving up 34 points, knowing that you gave them that kind of field position all game, you would almost feel good in that position as a defense. Like, dang, I feel like we're kind of winning these possessions, kind of knowing the circumstances. And if your offense was anything, you're not in those situations. So defense definitely has to feel like they played good enough to beat a Steve Sarkisian offense and a Texas offense led by Quinn Ewers. Just can't get any results on offense.
I'm still mystified every time I turn on Texas tape and see him finding ways to be explosive in the run game without what you would imagine to be a high-end elite back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, Cedric Baxter was an elite football player. They've still managed to not only run the ball effectively, but explosively through 6 games. It's been really, really, really impressive. By the way, the defensive pressure from this unit, the ability to get after the quarterback is alleviating a lot of those, what we thought to be going into the season concerns about their back end. Yeah. They're not having to cover very long.
No.
Because they're getting after the Q really, really well. Mm-hmm. They hit on Anthony Hill last cycle, and they hit on a freshman out of Duncanville. God, I'm going to have to look up his name. He's been playing really, really well, an edge rusher as well. A sawed-off edge rusher, too. I think last name Simmons, 6'2", like 230. Really good edge rusher, great speed rusher. They're really good at getting after the quarterback as well. I'm going to have to look this name up, so go ahead and feel about this game if you want.
What was the question you asked earlier?
How does it make you feel about Brent Venables? Because coming into this game, it was kind of, is Oklahoma's defense going to be do enough to, or is Oklahoma's offense going to be able to do enough to carry the defense over? And it just absolutely did.
Colin Simmons, a situational pass rusher right now as a freshman, getting home effectively. Go ahead, continue.
I would say that the biggest downfall of this offense was, one, the thing you kind of hitched this entire year to being Jackson Arnold, your quarterback. That didn't show signs of early success, and now that's piled on with we're starting a true freshman quarterback who has a depleted receiving room.
Yeah.
So those issues compile. Like, knowing all of that, I don't feel like you can harp too much on, like, Venables. Like, you got a good defense finally, but the offense isn't there because there's so much going on.
Guys, by the way, his offensive coordinator is a head coach at Mississippi State right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's hard enough to be a defensive-minded football coach and create good offense. It's really, really hard to replace your really good coordinator or somebody who knows what they're doing, the sport respects really well in the form of Jeff Lebby, your first year, and turn it around immediately, or maybe second year, whatever it was. It's very, very quickly early on in that process where it's like, shit, I'm a defensive-minded guy. This is my first time being a head coach, and now I got to replace a staffer like this quickly. I don't know if they were necessarily prepared to do so.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen this with a lot of coaches across the sport. I mean, two of the
You
greatest
are who
ones,
you hire.
Yeah, and two of the greatest ones had issues with this. Kirby Smart took some time for him to find an offensive guy that could really get things going for him. Nick Saban, once Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian were no longer there was some up and down with that offense until finally until like back end of last year, where Jalen Milroe and the offense finally started clicking. So it's just kind of something that happens in college football when you lose personnel and when you lose really good ones, especially when you're defensive minded, trying to find an offensive guy. These up and downs are kind of expected.
Yeah, it's hard to outsource talent on the opposing side of the ball that you're not necessarily is your specialty, and it's really hard to do it when the rug keeps getting swept out from under you. So I don't think you should hold this against him, and I don't think this was more of an opportunity for like people like, oh, imagine if he had Dylan Gabriel right now. I don't think that changes that much. I think we're at the point in the season where it's really not going to change things.
I mean, it's pretty clear to me that Dylan Gabriel made the better decision for himself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, there's no doubt about
1,000%.
that. I also don't think there was much of a pushback from Venables when that conversation was had. And I do think there is warranted criticism for that. There's obviously warranted criticism in his quarterback selection as well, right? So I think those things have shined their light, or this has shined the light on that kind of criticism for him. All right, let's move on to Ohio State and Oregon, an instant classic in this football game. 8 lead changes, great offensive moments, great defensive moments, answer after answer. I felt like it was like watching a really, really good boxing match. I felt like this is what Alabama, Georgia was supposed to be, instead of like an onslaught and a separation of two halves. Oregon obviously wins this one 32-31. Boys, I want to open the floor to you guys because I'm going to be honest with you. Christian Kirby was more animated, would you say? More animated and passionate about having a take about this Will Howard thing than I've ever seen him in the show chat. So the floor is yours, man. How much of a fumbling of the bag was this?
Thank you, Brooks. So I feel like throughout the entire offseason leading up to it, even through the most games this season, I've been the one member in this group that's kind of like, hey, maybe let's not have the anti-Will Howard deep state. Let's kind of be.
Let's have faith.
Yeah, let's wait. I don't think he's a guy that's going to go out and win you the Heisman. I don't think he's a national championship winner, but I think he's more than capable of being a solid quarterback and winning you games. And for 95% of the game, he was that. And even you tweeted out, it was, hey, I'm probably going to have to give Will Howard his flowers after.
Oh, yeah,
that.
but Mans was dotting it up.
He was. And then in the last drive of the game, I saw some of the poorest clock management I've seen, whether you want to put that on the coach or Ryan Day. That third down where you basically ran out 15 seconds, unacceptable. And then we all know the last play where I'm going to go slide after a 6-yard rushing gain. That was the problem I had with it mostly was it was such a great game and it was so perfect and it was coming down to this great moment to be taken away because of an idiotic decision. And not only that, it was so perfectly lined up. I was going to come in here and I was going to say, hey, look at that. Oregon missed a PAT that forced them to go for 2, which they then missed. Then they also missed a field goal, which gave Ohio State the opportunity on the last drive of the game to be able to make a field goal of their own. This was the perfect special teams matter game for me. And Will Howard took it away from me, and it pisses me off. And frankly, I don't think I'll be able to forgive him for it.
So you're part of the deep state?
I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm part of the deep state yet. I feel like I put up too much of a fight so far to be a part of the deep state. But Will Howard is certainly on my shit list right now.
I think I'd rather be on the deep state or someone have a deep state against me than be on one's shit list.
I also think it would be me not having a spine to week 1 be like, yeah, you know what? I'm in the deep state.
Yeah.
Now, if he does something like this again in week 2 or the second week, I'm in the deep state. But for now, he's on the shit list.
We're going to get him.
What is it with quarterbacks doing this so consistently? It feels like Dak Prescott did this in the playoffs last year. That's immediately what people started saying is, oh, he did a Dak Prescott. Joe Milton did this for Tennessee against Ole Miss, and then Nico did this not too long ago for Tennessee. Like,
Jameis
what
Winston
is it?
did it.
Like, what is it with the? Yeah, Jameis Winston has
Jameis
done this
Winston
before.
did it bad.
That was
Yeah, that
incredible.
one was.
Man's trying to throw the ball 7 yards past the line of
pump fake it
scrimmage.
after a
Pump
first
fake it
down.
after 9 yards.
So I don't know what it. Like, I know it's heat of the moment. Like, I just don't understand why it keeps happening so often.
First and foremost, that moment of sheer panic and chaos can never be simulated.
Nope. Sure.
I don't care how many 2-minute drills you run. I don't care how many times you've been in that situation. You cannot emulate what is happening and the emotions that are going on. But I've always said, and I said this on Sunday's show, frantic players get blame for what frantic coaches are doing. Frantic coaches create frantic players. I ain't never seen a calm coach have a freaked out player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, or the other way around. I've never seen a calm player have a freaked out football coach. You know what I mean? There's never a coach over there losing his mind while the player is cool, calm, and collected. It's always the inverse. And I've always looked at what you're pointing at. The fact that the clock was running on the third down shows me that the sideline's freaking out.
Yeah.
And it also showed me that the sideline's freaking out when Ryan Day's bitching to the referee about the clock running when he should be worried about why didn't we know the clock was going to be running? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I always look at the coaches for an issue. I think that's a common example of a player trying to make a play in that moment. And by the way, if he's down a half a second earlier, gets the timeout, we ain't talking.
Sure, absolutely.
We ain't talking. We're talking about how great Will Howard played in that 2-minute drive. So it's a game of game of inches, and in this instance, a game of seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, your internal clock in something like that is so off that, I mean, it makes sense as to why you would not know that there's 1 second left when you're sliding, but still unexcusable.
And I think it is notable to recognize that in both the Tennessee game and also now in this game, there were moments in this final drive where it was very obvious that this team is not handling this drill, this 1 minute drill or whatever it is very well. Like, they're chewing clock when they're not supposed to. They're not settling in. They're not getting set quick enough. And I think that's kind of led into, like, it's foreshadowing of, like, this drive is already kind of crapping out on them before it even gets to the finish line.
Ryan Day likes the bidet settings on high.
No comment.
You ever had a bidet?
Used one time.
I
Never had
have a
one,
funny
though.
story about a bidet. I didn't know what it was one time, and so I was like, "What the hell is this?" Turn it on, and it sprayed me in the face.
Well, yeah. Why would you think?
Because it was like
what
really,
could it have possibly been? An air
it was like a
freshener?
real. It was shaped like a really shallow sink.
You keep water fountains in your bathroom?
No, here's the thing. It wasn't like one of the ones attached to the toilet. It was a separate entity from the toilet. So you have the toilet and then the bidet next to it. It's not like one. It's not like the hose that you hook up.
That's how the one that
See, I've only been in bidets with like super rich people's houses where there's no need for two toilets. We have the one toilet.
This was like
with
a
the bidet
completely
built
other
in.
thing. It was like, is this like a sink for a really small person? So I turned it on and it sprayed me in the face. Disgusting.
It's an interesting feeling.
Well, I was confused too because I didn't know what it was, and I was like, "This sink just sprayed me in the face." And my mom was like, "The what? That's a bidet." And then she told me what a bidet was, and
Bidet to the snout. A couple of stats in this football game for you. You ready? Did you know that Ohio State hasn't hit a 50-yard field goal since 2020? And there have been two random human beings pulled off the street in flip-flops that have kicked 45-yarders on College game day the last 2 weeks.
that sucks.
Did you know that Jim Knowles' defense haven't forced a fourth quarter punt in any of the following football games? Michigan in 2022, Georgia in 2022, Michigan in 2023, Missouri in 2023, Oregon in 2024. Also known as Ohio State's last 5 losses.
Holy shit.
Haven't forced a punt in the last 12 or 15 minutes of the game.
What causes something like that? Because that's 3 years
Gotcha.
worth of just defensive collapses.
Hey, first of all, great job by you asking that question because I was hoping that somebody'd do it. Clearly, you aren't making very many adjustments defensively, and the opposition has now adjusted to everything that you're doing going into that football game. That looks to me like the opposing coordinator got uber freaking comfortable with what he was facing, right? That's the only answer. The only answer is we get into the fourth quarter, we know exactly what we need to do to now compromise this defense because we've seen it on tape now for 3 quarters. That's what it looks like to me. There's no new. There's nothing new. It's our guys are our guys. Our defense is our defense. This is how we're playing today. We make no adjustments.
And that would make sense too, like specifically for the Georgia-Ohio State game. Like in the fourth quarter.
Huge shots.
And it was very clear that Georgia had a play that they knew, like, if we need it, we're going to use it. They used it with the Arian Smith bomb quick touchdown, and then with the final drive,
dude,
I mean,
more
just
than
a
that,
masterpiece.
They had a run win against him. They had Kenny McIntosh dialed up for a 75-yard explosive in that football game that was designed off of one particular motion they knew they could get to, right? So this is a drastic issue at this point with really, really high-end, high-talented offenses. This is clearly not a problem when you play Purdue. This is clearly not a problem when you play Iowa. This is a problem when the opposition is as talented or more than you are defensively, and they don't run into very many of those.
No, they don't. Oof.
That's crazy.
That's
Which one's crazier? The fact that they haven't had a 50-yard field goal in 4 years when it seems like that's now the norm. We saw Ole Miss kick a 57-yarder and think they could kick a 62-yarder based off how they called plays.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about that.
I mean, like, let's be fair, though. 50-yard field goals in college aren't the easiest thing to do.
Shit, you ain't been watching college football. We got dudes bombing.
They are.
Every weekend,
They are.
dudes bombing.
It's impressive, but it's also a rarity when they do it. Like, everyone was impressed by that 58-yard field goal. If Justin Tucker kicks a 50, well, Justin Tucker's a bad example for this season, but
yeah, not to have one, though, in 4 years, not a single one.
Yeah, not to have a punt.
Not good.
Not to have a punt. It's no good.
it's no good.
It's no good.
It's no good.
It's no good. Penn State. Penn State survives. How about this?
Oh.
Penn State. By the way, if you didn't watch Sunday's reaction show, did you know that in the second half of this football game in which Penn State came back down 20-6, Drew Aller accounted for 235 of the total 303 yards they put up in the second half. He accounted for over 80% of the total offense, and this is what I needed to see.
Heisman sleeper.
This will be remembered as the Drew Aller game. All right, it will also be remembered by USC fans as the game in which Lincoln Riley randomly burnt 90 seconds of clock in a 2-minute drill in a tie football game in which he only needed a field goal. And when asked after the football game, Coach, why were you playing so slow? Why were you burning so much clock? Coach, you put yourself in a 3rd and 7 in midfield with 14 seconds left on the clock. Why were you playing so slow? Do you know what his answer was?
What?
We were afraid to give Penn State the ball back.
Well, I mean, he did see Drew Aller cooking and said,
Drew Aller.
We're not giving that man the ball.
Drew Aller had Lincoln Riley shaking in his boots on the sideline.
Was it really Drew Aller?
I don't know. That's my question. Was it Drew Aller or was Lincoln Riley scared of his own defense?
Definitely scared.
That second half would have had me scared of my defense.
That second half would have had me shaking in my boots from Aller.
Yeah.
We turned him into an NFL pro. We turned him into a dude.
USC, the most easily to be fooled team in college football right now. It's like
They got
first
me,
half,
dude.
my gosh, USC, they're doing it again.
They got Colin Cowherd. Did you see it?
No.
Colin Cowherd tweeted at halftime a video of him at some sports book talking some shit, what was that I heard about all these LA teams going out to the Big Ten? 20-6 halftime. Trojans looking tough. Did his thing and then quote tweeted with some freezing cold takes. You'll love to see it.
Naturally.
You'll love to see it. Are you guys like me though? Are you guys like me in the sense that I had to see Penn State win via the air and via being able to throw to ever really consider them a legit national title contender or even a playoff threat, in the sense that they're there and they're not an easy win. This legitimizes them for me. I'm going to have to pay attention to them seriously moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think any of us truly believe that they are a top 4 team in the country right now, but the way they played on Saturday certainly gives you the impression that they could make something happen. They're probably inside the top 15. They're one of the more dangerous teams, even if you don't want to play them. So they're a team that could make something happen, whereas now 2 weeks ago it was kind of Penn State will screw this up somehow. And there's plenty of room for them to still do that, but it's less likely now.
This is the type of football game, though, and to be fair, Drew Aller's never really had one of these to this point in his career, this is the type of game when someone's this talented that it might provide a spark of irrational confidence that I think he's missing, right? Or at least to this point in his career has been missing. You go on the road and do something like this in the second half and drag your team back and you're the reason, and for like one specific reason. There's a 4th and 10 in that football game with 3.5 minutes left. He gets blitzed, makes a guy miss, rolls to his right, on the run, throws a damn seed back to the left side on a dig. Absolute Sunday NFL throw in a moment where the game is on the line. They're about to lose. He makes that play. I can't imagine what that does for an internal confidence of a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I guess that's almost a good thing about them having some close games where they probably shouldn't have had some close games, is that your team's having to sweat them out. Like you had to sweat it out with Bowling Green, but it's kind of forced your team to stay in these type of moments, and it kind of puts some strain on them. And maybe it does make you more prepared down the road for your bigger games, where if you win those games now, you could be the team in the conference championship, and you could be the team that is just a lock walking in December for a college football playoff. They don't have to be a top 4 team. Just be top 12, and they're looking like a top 12 team.
All right, let's move on to this Alabama gross win. Alabama ekes one out, 27-5. Well, go ahead, man. Take on. What do you got for us in this disgusting
All I know
matchup?
is we were talking about how amazing this offense is, and I know South Carolina has a very
Brooks
good
Austin curse. It was bound to happen
I know.
eventually.
It's week 2 of the Brooks Austin curse. It didn't get him beforehand.
Yeah.
It's gotten him
It's
double
delayed
now.
reaction.
Delayed
Well-
reaction against Georgia because, my God, they did look unstoppable when they played Georgia. But now it's hitting them full time. You may give your announcement.
Defense made an obvious and noticeable adjustment.
Yes, they came out playing
Boy, a
good.
lot of zone. A lot of zone coverage, mixing the looks, and you could see South Carolina's coordinating staff kind of being like taken back by it and having to adjust in the game. The problem is they eventually got to the adjustments, but that's the byproduct of it. Like the other coordinator makes $800,000 as well. They're pretty good football coaches. But you know, I got a board segment here, so I want to continue with the actual analysis before we take it to the board, because offensively, I think we've been lied to about the growth of Jalen Milroe. There has been some, don't get me wrong. As I've said on this channel, though, majority of the growths come from the run game and the design quarterback run games. We saw some of the lack of growth and maturity from a quarterback standpoint Saturday with some of the just like rookie mistakes borderline, particularly in protection, that this guy made. And I'm going to take it to the board here in a second. Actually, let's do it right now. Take it to the board right now. Now, South Carolina played a very aggressive game plan against Jalen Milroe and this defense, or this offense from Alabama. Now, what they did on third downs particularly, okay, is they got into a walk to look, all right? They'd walk the end up, they'd walk the 3-tech out, they'd walk the 3-tech out, they'd walk the end up, they'd walk the mic and the wheel into the A-gaps. This is what some coaches call a double mugged look. Now, we have one of two options as an offensive line and as a team to try to block this scheme. Scan protection or full slide protection. Those are really the only two options. Scan protection, everybody gets back, okay, and identifies the 5 threats that are ultimately coming and try to lock up with who's in front of them, right? Try to lock up with who they got. 9 times out of 10, you're hoping that one of these guys drops, okay, and we can match up with everybody else. If not, sometimes we're kind of screwed in scan protection. It doesn't really, 100% work out all the time. There are areas for us to be exposed if we just select the wrong guy, right? If we're in scan protection and they rush 4 and we select the wrong 4, we got a one-on-one over here, we're in trouble, right? There's ways for us to be in trouble if we scan protect it. So what Bama did in this walk look and what they've decided they're going to do is they're going to full slide it. They're either going to Larry or they're going to Ricky this entire protection, meaning everybody on the offensive line, if we slide left, has their left gap, and the back is either checking out or the back is off of the edge. Alabama's back, from my understanding, was checking out most of the games, at least in these looks, particularly in empty. If they're in empty, he's obviously not there. Now, if I'm in a full left slide, okay, and this guy comes off the edge, I'm hot, guys. I'm hot every single time. That guy is going to hit me. We have nobody for him. Jalen Milroe got popped on this twice on Saturday on third downs. Just borderline, like day one mistakes from a quarterback. Now, here's what veteran quarterbacks, particularly quarterbacks that can run, would likely do. If I'm this Q, you know what I'm doing? I'm putting it in a full Ricky, all right? We're going to slide right, all right? I'm going to drop, And if I need to, if I can't throw hot, I'm going to spin out off this left edge who's going to be pursuing me really, really heavy. By the way, Georgia fans watching this network, that's the Stetson Bennett play. Stetson Bennett did that his whole career. Every single time he got walked looks, he called a Ricky slide and rolled out left. All right? The quarterback from Alabama certainly has the abilities to do so, just not seeing it. All right? And then later on in the football game, South Carolina gives them the same walked look. They drop this guy, they drop this guy, they drop this guy into a spy, and he runs right into the spy, and that was the safety on that football play. All right, so just some day one kind of, not necessarily rookie mistakes, but just stuff that we can't do when you're this far into your career as a quarterback. I mean, we're 15 games into it at this point. All right, 15 games into it at this point. And I keep getting this comp. Do I look like Jeff Lebby?
No.
I mean, I'll take his paycheck.
You don't stand there with your mouth open 24/7.
You don't see me off camera, big guy. Well, I guess you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I do.
If there's anyone who sees you off camera, it's probably Jay.
Yeah. Jay Will sees me more than my wife.
Makes sense.
But I think that the frustrating thing I would say for South Carolina in this game is, and it's the epitome of what it takes to beat Alabama and what it is when you don't. And there was two keynote plays in this game where Alabama had a chance, or South Carolina had a chance to make one of those plays that allows you to beat Alabama. One of them was Lenore Sellers dang near getting sacked, spinning out of it, and then throwing a seed 50 yards down the field and drops the football. And at that moment, I was like, if you can't make that play, the play that you absolutely needed right there, it's just not going to happen. But then you make one late in the game to Nick Harper down for a touchdown, and then you throw the ball 40 yards in the stand on the final play of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even that. You just have to shoot yourself in the foot less times than Alabama does. And if Alabama doesn't shoot themselves in the foot at all, like they did against Georgia, you're in deep shit, and you definitely can't do it. That's why you get down 28-0 in the first half of the game. If Alabama does it, you have to do it less. You can't fumble the ball on a read option. You can't overthrow and then have your wide receiver give up on a route on the last play of the game to where the safety can track the ball and intercept it. Things like that are why South Carolina lost the game. Now, it's honestly a damn miracle they had that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because that onside was insane. And that catch by Nick Harper was also incredible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, South Carolina did just about everything they could to have won that game, and they still lost, in my opinion.
I will say this. Alabama's not going to face another defense that attacks them that way. They won't see another pair of edge rushers that are just like, hey, the game plan today is balls against the wall. Like, we're just going all out. We're going to get this guy on the ground because we've got Dylan Stewart and Luke Kennard. We're good enough to do so. We're going to blow up every mesh point in read option. We're going to blow up every opportunity we can. We're going to speed rush this guy. Everybody is so terrified to actually get upfield and rush Jalen Milroe because he takes off so well. They were not afraid of it, and they hunted this guy and played aggressively, and you have to give them credit for that. Also, I don't know how many teams are going to be able to disguise as much as South Carolina does. It was the first thing that stood out to us during that South Carolina-Kentucky study that we did preparing for Georgia's game against Kentucky. Is like, damn, I don't know what South Carolina's playing. They know what they're playing. I got no clue because it's impossible to diagnose pre-snap. And you could see some of that hesitation created by Milroe in this football game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got after him, and they created a lot of havoc in the backfield.
Do you think that team saw the success that South Carolina had now and are going to try to replicate that? Or
no, you can't. That's what I started. You cannot go with the same game plan that they had because they got 2 first-round picks at the edge rush position, right? We can't just, we're going to replicate what they got. No, you can't do that. Let's go on to Tennessee. Another yuck win. 23-17 in overtime. I said it.
Stadium strikes again.
Yeah, Neyland Stadium strikes again. I said it going into this football game, the deep passing attack for Tennessee has just not been there. And you saw it. You saw it from Florida's defensive game plan. They played chicken. They played chicken with Tennessee. They stared at them driving down the road on the same side of the line and said, hey, we're going to dedicate bodies to the box today. We're going to stop Dylan Sampson with as many bodies as we need to stop him. We're going to leave everybody else on a one-on-one. See if you can beat us today. And I have yet to see a team do this to them and successfully do it to them. And I think now moving forward, you're going to see a lot more teams try to do this to them because they've put it on tape. They can be limited like this.
Part of what makes Tennessee's offense so dangerous is that if you dedicate your players to one area.
It's a death wish normally.
If you dedicate your players to stopping the pass, they'll just run into them to oblivion.
Yep.
If you dedicate to stopping the run, they can pass. The problem is if Tennessee's offense isn't very good at passing the ball downfield like they were in 2022, you're not going to have as much success as you did. And we saw this on Saturday. Florida's defense was able to essentially put Tennessee's offense in a box. Nico was pretty much running for his life the entire game. I didn't watch the film study on that, but Nico looked panicked throughout the entire game.
I said it on the film study, I think his growth is really, really being stunted as a young quarterback right now because even when pockets are clean, he's assuming that they are not because majority of them are not. So you have a wide receiver corpse right now who can't separate. They're banged up. I mean, Squirrel White played so damn tough Saturday night, entered that football game with a bum shoulder, separates it in the middle of the game.
Yeah, I saw that.
They take him into the tent, shove it back into place, and he runs back out there with some damn athletic tape on his shoulder. I mean, as tough as a performance as you can possibly get because they have to have it right now. My question, like most Tennessee fans right now, is where's Mike Matthews? Why go out and land 5 stars and is it the system that hard for him to understand? Like, why is the freshman not playing? Because they've got guys dropping footballs left and right.
Yeah, that was my question last week heading into this game of why isn't Mike Matthews being used? Because it seems like it's a prime time for you to kind of need one of these guys with how banged up your wide receiver room is. And now I understand that you've been in some close football games, may not be the best time to be putting your freshman out there on the football field in some crucial moments. But it seems like at some point, push comes to shove, you got to put him out there. But I don't want to jump to conclusions because we don't know.
We don't know. I don't know if Mike's doing everything he needs to do to get onto the field. We don't know that, right? We don't just want to assume that Heupel's not playing him for some vendetta or something. There's probably a reason why he's not playing the guy. There are clear signs to me though on tape that this is still a very young quarterback. It's a very young quarterback. His feet are not tied to his eyes. And it is so clear for years of watching all these I'm not saying he's not a really good quarterback, but all these really technically sound quarterbacks. Like you turn on Carson's tape, he's almost too technical. It's almost like, hey, stop being a robot, be an athlete for once. And then you turn on Nico's tape, and it's like there's no way for you to continue to grow with your processes and tying your feet to your eyes because as soon as we get off one, we feel like we got to scramble. You know what I mean? And there's just it's all over the tape. The left tackle's an absolute liability.
Ooh.
Yeah, offensive line in general hasn't been the best.
It's getting to a point where you almost, if you're Josh Heupel, do you stay diligent and do you stay almost hard-headed and do you stay continuing to do what you do, or do you consolidate and meet in the middle and adjust as a football coach? Because if we bump the alignment, if we squeeze the alignment because time is an issue, we can't drive the football down the field that much. All right, so maybe we do need to squeeze the alignment. But if you squeeze the alignment, slow the pace down, now are we going outside of who we are and who my identity is? You see what I'm getting at? Where's the fine line between adjusting to meet the deficiencies of this roster and not bending outside of who we are and what we do in our ideologies?
Yeah, I mean that it's a interesting question to answer because one, it comes down to pride. How stubborn are you? And two, how much does changing your identity throw a complete wrench in everything else that you've learned and taught your football team as a whole? So it'll be interesting to see how he attacks it because I don't think the way things are going right now, you can continue to run the offensive system that you're running and expect to win games.
When it comes to protection, you're not just magically going to get better at protection midway through the year unless you're Alabama in 2022. It's the only team that did it. They went from giving up 14 sacks against Auburn to 0 against the best defensive line the SEC's put together in I don't know how many years.
Right.
So that's the only one we've ever seen just be like magically, a fairy showed up. We can protect now. Other than that, history shows you that this is going to continue to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll get your answer on Saturday of whether or not he feels like he needs to adapt because you got 2 games that you have to win. You got to beat Alabama. You got to beat Georgia. Or those are the 2 games that you feel like you have to win. And so you're going to find out on Saturday how much he feels like he needs to adjust.
All right, let's be quick on this LSU Ole Miss football game. I gave the end of half stats. They were nuts. 51% of the offense scored in this football game was scored in the last 3 minutes of each half.
Impressive.
Insane.
Jackson Dart, too much of a game player. Too much of a game player. Watching that overtime possession unfold, 1st and 10, deep shot. Yep. 1st and 20, deep shot. 2nd and 20, deep shot. Third and 20 in overtime.
3rd and 25.
3rd and 25. You may not even get a field goal out of this. Deep shot, trying to get a touchdown of this. Brother, at some point, just try and get some yardage, help your kicker out. Now, luckily, he made the field goal.
Dude's got a boot.
Luckily, he made the field goal. But watching that happen, I was like, can we just throw a little 5-yard out or something to go in your favor?
Yeah, it definitely seemed to me like they took the shot, and then it was like, all right, let's just try to get a PI here. Let's just try to get a PI here. Oh, all right, 3rd and 25. Let's just try to get a PI here. We've got a good kicker. So that drive was very poorly mishandled. But I mean, this is the Ole Miss we've seen 99 times.
Offense don't travel.
Not even that. It's just Ole Miss, as long as I've been alive, with the exception of the 2 Bama games in 2014 and 15, has always lost this type of game. I don't know what it is. It's not just a Lane Kiffin thing, because this has been a problem long before he was there. But Ole Miss always finds a way to lose this type of game. And by the way, LSU, Death Valley at night, they typically find ways to win those types of games.
Absolutely.
That's the way it came down to it for me.
I thought this was the key stat in this football game, particularly when you're playing an Ole Miss offense. They did a great job, did LSU's defense, of making them be methodical. Ole Miss had 1 scoring drive in this football game of fewer than 6 plays. They made this team go like this all the way down the field, and that's not what they want to do. They're ultimately going to put the ball at risk at doing that, and they did in this football game. So yeah, good on them for making it grinded out. Garrett Nussmeier, the rare combination of lunch pail, intangibles, and ball placement. Guy's getting it done with the trilogy.
He is.
With the trilogy of quarterback play.
And I feel like after the USC game, everybody collectively was just like, all right, LSU's done. Like, they're not going to make it throughout the entire season without losing another game.
No, I think it was after the South Carolina game. People were kind of high on us after the USC game.
Well, yeah, but in the sense of it's Brian Kelly. Like, they
same
lost
old LSU.
Yeah.
Same old LSU. Nothing has changed, and now you're sitting here like, 5-1. They're up at top in the SEC. Now they're sitting in a really good spot to push for a playoff spot.
Enough of that one. Let's go to K-State, Colorado. Just a thought. Okay, I just want to throw this out here. Just a little theory. Okay, football, pretty notoriously tough sport.
Very.
Physically, you're at peril like all of the time. This sport is plenty physical. It's plenty physical enough. Playing twice the number of snaps, mathematically,
twice as likely to get hurt.
Probably even more. More.
Yeah.
Probably like maybe like 150% more likely to get injured. Just again, not saying he's injury prone, Travis Hunter, but the sport of football is very injury prone, and exposing ourselves twice as much, probably more likely to get us injured. So I just ran down the history. Travis Hunter's senior year was cut short due to an injury. He was hurt year 1 at Jackson State. He missed 3 games last year, and he's out again Saturday with a concussion. He is not injury prone. The sport very much so is. And I just think this is the harsh reality of playing 128 snaps a game. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah, and that's the even harsher reality for Colorado of kind of banking your success on how well can we get Travis Hunter and Shedeur to play. Like, those 2 guys kind of have to have good games for you to win a game nowadays, it seems. I mean, they've been the ones making all the plays, and it reared its ugly head towards the end of that game. Travis Hunter's not on the field for the offense or the defense, and you're giving up explosives, and you're losing that game, and then when it comes down to driving the ball down the field, you're not able to do it.
I think the best thing about this football game from a Colorado perspective is Shedeur played really well without Travis Hunter. He still put up big numbers. He still played efficiently. And he's put your team in a winning position without your best player on the football field. I think that's the best takeaway for both Shedeur, like his future as a football player and moving on for him as a prospect, and Colorado knowing that moving forward, if we don't have Travis Hunter next week or maybe the next, like, we're going to be fine offensively. We can still get it done there.
Shiloh looked bad in this football game.
Oh, bad as an understatement.
Had that boy praying on his knees.
It was not good.
Even his dad said he had played a horrible game.
Really?
Yeah.
Vandy good?
Are they?
I don't know if anybody's good. Let's do this. Is anybody good?
I think there's good. Is anybody great?
Is anybody great? Let's run this down. Top 10, you ready? Real quick and real fast. Texas. They ain't played nobody, Paul. Oregon. Inconsistent as possibly can be. 1-point win at Boise State at home. Penn State. 1-point win against Bowling Green. Get out of here.
Yep.
Ohio State. Just lost to the one good team you've played against. Get out of here. Georgia, as up and down as humanly possibly can be. Get out of here. Miami, ACC prop. That's all they are. Get out of here.
Cal and
7,
Tech.
Alabama, LOL. Vandy almost lost to South Carolina. Get out of here. LSU, lost to a really bad USC team. Get out of here. Iowa State, get out of here. Clemson, ACC prop. Get out of here. Is there a great team in college football?
I don't know.
I don't think there is one.
I don't think the greatness we've measured The greatness that we saw in the 14 playoff era of, oh my gosh,
The pre-NIL era is what I say.
That also,
Yeah.
14 playoff era, pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal, you can go anywhere you want, was, wow, greatness was this team's 12-0. They didn't struggle against anybody. They wiped through the slate. I think those days in college football in general are over. We talked about this towards the front of the show of the parity has never been higher. It seems like at any point,
Never.
any Saturday, anyone can win, anyone can lose. So I think you're seeing that play out week in and week after. So you have these number one teams. You have Bama losing to Vanderbilt. You have these upsets where Cal barely loses to Miami in top 10 teams. So I think you're going to continue seeing that. I think there are great teams, and we'll see them come out through the stretch. But right now, there's just a bunch of really, really good teams.
All right, let's be really quick here on where we were right, where we were wrong. Give me one primary where you were right, one primary where you were wrong. Where I was right, anti-Will Howard Deep State, stand up. Where I was wrong, the Fighting Bows only held Ashton Genty to 200 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns.
Oh, only.
Yeah, only.
It's a good day for
They
the
put it
good
up.
day.
You know, for when you go into a week saying he's gonna break the single game rushing record, and they only hold him to 200, not bad.
I was right about the Tennessee-Florida matchup. I pounded it home that this rivalry is always a close one. This is always a one-score football game.
And Florida owns it.
Florida does own it. You took the loss on Saturday, but you guys mucked it up enough to where you were in that football game. Maybe if you don't lose your quarterback, you come out on top of that game as well. I was wrong about South Carolina. I thought that game – I thought Alabama was going to roll through them. I thought South Carolina was just going to fall flat on their face in that game. But they made it a football game, and you dang near came out with a win.
This one wasn't very hard to be right about, but I want to give a shout out anyways. I was right. The troops absolutely neutralize UAB. My goodness. And Navy.
Trent Dilfer going to be back on TV real quick.
Top 25 teams, Army and Navy.
Yeah.
That Army-Navy game looking
Top
nice.
15?
No, top 25.
Oh, yeah. That's fair.
Hey, could have playoff.
Thank you for your service.
Exactly.
Thank you for your service.
Where I was wrong, it was, in fact, not a Mac Brown off the mat game.
Oh,
No.
Oh, man. That
Ooh.
was... We didn't
16
talk,
seconds left?
16 seconds left, and you let a 50-yard run up the middle for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't see this?
Yeah.
is it going to OT?
They were winning,
They
weren't
were winning by 3.
And they gave up a run?
No, you know what?
run.
I think it might have been tied.
Maybe it
Run.
was tied. Either way, 16 seconds after the ball game, you let a 50-yard run for a touchdown.
Crazy work.
Draw play. Just 50 yards up the middle.
Oh, Jamal Haynes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Not a Mac Brown off the mat game.
Shout out to the Buzz. Let's get into preview, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, we got some good football games this weekend. Let's start with the LSU at Arkansas matchup. We'll build to that Bama at Tennessee game. Arkansas and Taylor Green have had a week to get healthy, fresh off a bye week. This game comes down solely, in my opinion, to just how healthy is Taylor Green. We've seen what this offense, particularly the passing offense, looks like without him. When Malachi Singleton gets in there, it just doesn't quite look like what it looks like with Taylor Green, particularly with his legs and his ability to extend plays. Based off Sam Pittman's comments today, boys, it sounds like Taylor Green's going to play. LSU obviously with a big win last week or this past Saturday inside Tiger Stadium in overtime. And history tells us that's not necessarily great for LSU. Is that correct?
So 2022, I'm thinking of one of the last big marquee overtime wins in Death Valley. 2022, LSU obviously upsets Alabama. The next week,
Bless you.
they play Arkansas in Fayetteville, win 13-10. Now, keep in mind, this was not the Arkansas teams we see this year. This was a very bad Arkansas team. Kind of had a sleep game. So, and then obviously they finished the season losing Texas A&M and Georgia. So, kind of sneaky for LSU. Kind of look out here. You just got off of a very, very emotional, very late game. Arkansas's got a week of rest. Their quarterback's getting healthy. Could get ugly for LSU there. Could get dicey. Maybe not
Dicey.
And I've kind of
Line's only like 3.5 in this.
It's not big.
Yeah.
No.
And I've felt this way about Arkansas and Vanderbilt, where I felt like these teams would just get to a point where teams would know coming into the week, all right, this isn't a take a week off kind of game where we can just take them lightly. And teams are continuing to get got by both of these programs. Vanderbilt is doing it. Arkansas did it to Tennessee. Nobody's really woken up to this, and I think it's because partially these teams are better than what we think they are even now, and also that teams maybe are not just kind of realizing that. They're kind of viewing them as they did in the preseason.
Well, it's also, go to Twitter right now and look up LSU football. They are still talking about the game. You know, the Kyron Lacey, I want one-on-one with 28 right now. That's going viral right now. They are still fixated on that game on Saturday night. I doubt Arkansas is worried about what happened last Saturday. So something to look out for. This could very well be a trap game for LSU.
If Taylor Green does play, I hope he is healthy.
Yeah,
100%.
I hope he is going to play healthy, because if it's just like 70% Taylor Green, I don't want to watch that happen. I don't want to watch that football.
70% Taylor Green is one play away from being in an ambulance too. Let's be fair.
Hospital ball, baby.
Ooh,
The best way,
He's
the
playing.
only way to play for Taylor Green.
that's right.
Well, hospital foosball. Let's move on to this Auburn at Missouri game. And I want to start with this. Is this a must-win for Hugh Freeze? And here's why. Have you looked at the rest of the schedule?
It's not great.
At Missouri this weekend, at Kentucky, Vandy at home, Louisiana Monroe at home, Texas A&M at home, at Alabama.
There's one guaranteed win.
There's
on
one
that slate.
guaranteed win. And is it? Nothing's guaranteed anymore. Nothing. They lost to New Mexico State
you're
at home
losing-
last year.
If ULM Monroe is not a guaranteed win, you are in deep shit. So
I mean, right now he's staring down 4-8.
I'll put it this way: they're guaranteed one more win. I don't know. It might not be ULM, but they'll win one more game this season.
I would agree with that. I would think that they win at least one more. The question is, though, 4-8. That ain't cutting it. I don't think that's not cutting it for anybody. Never at Auburn is 4-8 cutting it.
Never.
Even when you can blame, the roster that you've had for 2 years.
I don't.
I thought
think
this was
that's gonna-
funny how today there was a clip posted of Hugh Freeze giving credit to Clark Lee, giving credit to Sam Pittman, and giving credit to Mark Stoops and these coaches for doing more with less, speaking about their rosters. I was like, you'll prop up other coaches, but you aren't going to prop up and go to bat for your own players?
Interesting, man. When is he going to get on the Kirby Smart treatment where they're like, well, Kirby asked for it. Their SID needs to go to him and say, hey, look, you're only doing Monday pressers. You're only doing Tuesday post-practice pressers, and you do the one radio show where you don't take any call-ins. And that's what Kirby gets to do because Kirby don't want to be in front of microphones. They need to do this to Hugh so he's not in front of microphones.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, then the problem is, I mean, and I don't know the ins and outs of the Auburn football program, but then does the media become disgruntled with you? Like we're kind of seeing in Florida right now where even the media wants you out. So I don't know, but it's just something to consider.
We have a super chat from Tyler Marsh. I was wondering if the trio could give me a blind grade on this stat line for a DB over the course of 3 games combined. 18 targets, 12 catches, 125 yards allowed, 0 touchdowns, 3 PBUs, 1 forced fumble, 1 DPI.
Forced fumble, that's what I'm focusing on.
Yeah,
Trying to think of a forced fumble. I assume this is a Georgia question.
I would assume so too. I think he wants me to shit on this football player and say that's not good enough. But you know how I am. I got to see him. I got to see the tape.
Well,
I got to know why you gave up those 12 receptions.
It's also 12 receptions for 125 yards isn't a ton.
Yeah, not a lot of explosives being given up in that
No.
metric either. How many of those were like cover 4 hitches?
Mm-hmm.
How many of those were one-on-one lost to a 50-50 ball?
The big stat for me is 0 touchdowns allowed, 3 pass breakups. Like, you're not letting them score on you.
Can't be Dalen Everett.
Nope.
I don't know. I would say it's not good enough based off the way you proposed the question.
Yeah, sure.
I would give it a B- because he wanted a grade.
Yeah. I mean, 18 targets and 3 PBUs. Not good enough, I guess. It's the catching 66% of the balls, I think, is the main problem there.
Yeah.
I think is what they're proposing. Is there any way this is the week that Missouri's offense plays right?
This game is so hard to predict because it's one team in Missouri that has been so up and down throughout the season that you don't know what you're going to get. And then it's another team, Auburn, that has let's be fair, a fairly decent offense, but loves turning the ball over.
Hey, they're one game turnover free.
Yeah, and you can't really
What?
you can't really analyze a team that loves turning the ball over because turnovers throw such a wrench in everything. You could have a 95-yard drive, start at the 1, drive down all the way to the opposing team's 4, and if you fumble it, that drive is null and void, pointless. So it's very hard to predict against these teams. My gut tells me that yes, this would more likely be the Missouri game to get off the mat than it would for Auburn, but again, I don't know.
You better get it rolling now. You have to get it rolling now. And this would be. You think it would be one of these games, but Auburn is such an up and down team. You really don't know which Auburn team you're going to get.
I want Tyler to tell me where he got that stat. That's pretty advanced statistic.
I've been seeing it floating around a lot.
Probably Pro Football Focus, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably so.
Most likely.
All right, big football game this weekend. Big football game this weekend. Bama returns to Tennessee for the first time in Neyland Stadium since that epic 52-49 win and shootout in 2022. It's shaping up to be another elite matchup between these two football teams. Bama coming off their best defensive performance, unquestionably, and their worst offensive performance, unquestionably. Tennessee's offense still really struggling. Guys, I think the key to this matchup is very simple. Can Tennessee hit their shots? That's it. It's that simple. And we've talked about this in the Georgia Hour for a while now. Can you consistently hit your shots? And here's the problem for Tennessee that isn't maybe so a problem for a program like Georgia or a program like Ohio State right now that's not consistently driving the ball down the field effectively. Those teams can protect. Tennessee cannot. That is very clear at this point in the season. So if you can't protect, that means we can't take a lot of these shots, at least not traditionally. You're going to have to get to play action rollouts. You're going to have to roll the quarterback, stop him, and throw back. So if that's the style of offense we have to take our shots out of, we're not going to be able to take one a quarter, two a quarter, one a possession. We're not going to be able to take them at the frequency that we normally would or most football teams would. So when you have them called, you're going to have to hit them in this football game because Alabama certainly will. And Alabama has to this point. They didn't last week, but Alabama has consistently hit these deep shots. They were even explosive at points in that game against South Carolina, particularly with Bernard. But here's the key stat in this football game, guys. Tennessee right now in their last 3 football games has allowed 7.4 yards per attempt, not completion, attempt. And that ranks them about 75th in the country over the last 3 football games. The back end for Tennessee is certainly gettable. And in a world of college football now where we bank on the explosive metrics far more than ever before, Alabama, both offensively and defensively, has shown a more consistent explosive attack than Tennessee. And I never thought we'd get to that point.
I think that's the harsh reality for Tennessee is not only are you not explosive like you have been in the past, but against a football team where you have to hit explosive plays, that puts even more pressure on the chances that you do get them because it feels like it almost feels like do or die.
Yeah.
Like here's our one explosive that we might get this quarter. We have to hit it, it feels like. And if we don't, then it might be the downfall of this game for us. So there's a lot of heightened pressure now on those deep shots.
This game feels a lot more to me like how can Tennessee's defense aid their offense in a win? Can you keep Alabama from flipping the field? Because, look, we know that Alabama's offense is going to be able to score points on this defense. They're gettable in the back end. That's what it is. But when they're not scoring points on you, can you keep them from flipping the field? Can you maybe make something happen?
3 and outs immediately.
Give Nico a short field, maybe a turnover, something like that. Something to build momentum to where you can keep it in this game and stay within striking distance. And then it comes down to, can you get that one shot? Can you get the shot that you need? I think that Tennessee's defense would be much more important than Tennessee's offense in this game because the reality is, you're never going to win a shootout against Alabama in this type of situation, which is weird to say, but that's what it is. We've seen Tennessee's offense. They're not very good downfield throwing. Alabama's much better at that. Can Tennessee's defense limit it enough to give Tennessee's offense the chance to win?
If Florida was willing to say, we can cover you, there ain't been a football team in America right now that thinks they can cover more people than the way Alabama's been playing defense.
Absolutely.
I don't know, man. There's no way to get better at it. Do you know what I heard Kirby say the other day? You know what wide receiver conditioning has been? Since they've had this problem with deep shots, you know what their conditioning has been?
Running routes on air.
They run deep routes on air.
Yeah.
They run all the deep shots on air, full speed. While the rest of the team is conditioning, they're over there doing that. And this is something new that I've heard them talk about, and I would imagine this is something they've implemented since the issues have been created. I would imagine Tennessee's probably going to have to do something similar. And the other thing about this offensive line is I don't think they're in shape.
Yeah.
I don't think they're in shape enough to be running the offense that they're running, and that's particularly the left tackle. Now, he missed some time during camp. He was banged up, and there's a reason he's having to play his way into shape. But there are obvious signs on tape where the offensive line's either slow off the ball or sucking wind or not playing with tremendous amounts of effort because they're tired.
Yeah, and I mean, when your offense, part of your predication is going fast so your defense can get caught off guard, can kind of be fatigued as the game goes on. When your offense is the one getting fatigued, it's not going to work very well for you.
Any other thoughts on this football game? We'll get into predictions later in the week.
Yeah.
Just excited for it.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped for this.
This will be a good one. Is this a 3:30 kick?
3:30.
3:30.
kick.
And then you got Georgia, Texas
Yeah.
at 7:30.
It'll be a good one. This weekend's going to be hell.
I'm excited.
Yeah, this weekend's going to be hell.
Man, I can't wait.
All right, we got a whole nother hour coming up right now, and it's our local hour. Some say it's our best.
Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? You really like that? Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back in to our loaded local hour. We got film notes. We got Mississippi State review. Kirby Smart went viral this weekend. We got 3 takeaways. We're going to give you game balls. There's an Arian Smith segment tonight that I'm apparently excited for.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see what that's all about. And I'm going to give you the first look at Texas. I watched their offensive performance against Oklahoma this past weekend, and I've got initial thoughts and initial notes before we give you the film study tomorrow. Great time to be on this network. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. And a tremendous time to be betting over with our friends over at BetUS. If you're looking for a new book this season, BetUS is indeed the answer. Guys, did you know they have a 150% deposit match and 125% deposit match on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000 over on BetUS? Use a promo code YouTube150.
Well, yeah, I knew that because they're our sponsor. But.
I mean, you should know that as an audience member because that's huge, man. They're not giving you 1 first-time deposit. They're not giving you 2 first-time deposits. They're giving you 3 first-time deposits using promo code YouTube150. Great time to be over there with BetUS. I really do. I really need to ask you guys to support those who support us. Throw your full support at them like you have this channel. I know I ask a lot of you guys. We certainly ask you a lot to show up for a ton of content, okay? I need you to show up for our sponsors as well. All right, I got film notes for you, boys. You want to take these off the head right now?
Yes.
All right, shots to the dome. Here we go. Let's start with the excuses.
By the way, before you get deep into film notes, I watched the film notes today. Very, very minimal Diddy.
I thought so too. Afterwards, I was like, you know what? I don't think I said any
To the point where I probably can't even do a Diddy counter for that one.
Just
But
wait. Just
tomorrow,
wait.
we'll have one.
Yeah, we got plenty. We got plenty to get after on the Diddyisms. Let's start with the excuses. You extended 3 drives with penalties. 1 with a roughing, 1 with a face mask, 1 with a pass interference, and you busted on 2 consecutive coverages, and you lost all but 1 50-50 ball. If I presented that type of scenario to any football team, I'm going to look at you and go, damn, you're going to have to put up 600 yards total offense to win today. It's a good thing they did. It's a good thing they did because, my God, it's about as bad as you can play. It's about as bad as you can play defensively. And again, you're lucky. Normally, in most situations, you are lucky to win this football game. I repeat, you gave them free first downs 3 different times due to penalty. You busted 2 consecutive coverages, and you lost all but 1 50-50 ball in the back end. That's as bad as you can humanly play, hopefully, moving forward the rest of the season because you got a unit to play this weekend. Busted coverages were absolutely inexcusable, okay? One of them was a double move, I'm pretty sure, against quarters on Daniel Harris, biting down when you shouldn't be, okay? Playing too aggressive when you shouldn't be. All right, that's a bad, inexcusable bust. The very 2 plays later, they run like a play action. The corner bites on it, and the safety, Malachi Starks, doesn't see that it's a pass until the ball's thrown over his head. All right, at that point, everyone's cooked. Complete busted coverages and a lack of awareness and a lack of eye discipline, as Kirby Smart would say. The rest, I'm going to be honest. You got to give credit where credit is due. The ball on Jonel Aguero was absolutely perfect. Flipped the field,
so perfect.
Nothing you can do. You can't play better defense on it. Tremendous ball, tremendous execution, and they kept attacking your brackets. I want to talk about this because this is something you've got to fix. Let's go to the board. All right. Every single time Jeff Lebby and this Mississippi State offense needed a short yardage conversion, every time they needed a red zone touchdown, they went and attacked your brackets very early on in this football game. They found out that it was a problem, and by God, they came right back to it. I'm just going to put them in a nub set. It doesn't really matter. Let's put the X over here, the Z over here, and the slot over here. Now, what they were doing, all right, is they were taking these 2 players and darting them across the formation and then taking the most inside player and running him outward. And what this was doing was, let's draw it up on the other side. What this was doing was forcing, all right, Georgia
to take what was called, or take some type of bracket coverage approach to it. All right, they ran it in the red zone a lot. All right, we're going to take these two guys, we're going to run them into the formation, and then we're going to leak this guy. What was happening over and over and over again was on the goal line, it was Julian Humphrey. What was happening over and over again was this corner was trying to fight and run with that leverage instead of saying, hey, we got bodies in there, and calling some type of bracket coverage. We saw one clip where Julian was actually calling it and didn't actually run it. I got luckily called back for an offensive PI, but they came right back to it later in the football game. You have to scream in, and we have to be able to play out on this type of formation and this type of situation. The most famous example of this was Travis Hunter picking the ball off against TCU several years ago. This has become a staple in short yardage and red zone situations because it beats man and zone because so many teams are teaching guys, even if they're in cover two, if the guy goes in, we've got to carry him in and then get back out. All right, so y'all got to fix this over the next week, all right, over the next several days, because I would imagine Texas gets to it at some point on Saturday because you showed an inability consistently to pass it off. That's got to get fixed.
Mm-hmm. Saw that on tape over and over and over and over and over again. So that needs to be fixed. You're going to have to clean that up. Now let's talk about the positives. I thought the defensive line played phenomenally.
Best they've played all year.
For sure, particularly on the interior of that defensive line. Linebackers played okay. And I think at linebacker and at safety for sure, we are seeing a depletion of talent, no different than we saw last year at the defensive line. That defensive line has grown, right? Nazir Stackhouse has taken a step. Kristen Miller has certainly taken a step. We're looking for some of those other guys to take steps. I don't think there's been a drastic improvement in C.J. Allen just yet. I don't think there has been some improvement in Raylan Wilson. There's not drastic improvement in Raylan Wilson just yet. I thought Dan Jackson played phenomenally yet again. And I thought every defensive back not named Dan didn't play very well. That includes Malachi Starks.
Yeah, and it just, for the defensive back room, it just kind of felt like there was individual moments that kind of piled up against one another of Malachi Starks biting down to her on the run. You get beat over the top, and Julian Humphrey had a bad moment, and it was in those deep shots, and it kind of just compiled over and over. But I would say that the penalties more than anything allowed those moments to happen, and if the penalties don't happen, then you're off the football field.
Were they asking about the Julian Humphrey touchdown at the end of the game?
Yeah, actually, the same wasn't a Kobe pick.
It was a Hugo. It was a hitch and go.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. I think people have been asking about the pass rush. I think pass rush is fine.
Yeah.
I think you've created plenty of havoc. You forced quarterbacks to either scramble or get rid of the ball quickly with just rushing 4.
Shoot, we saw on tape they got home with 3 at one point in the football game.
I think the rush is fine. Let's continue this review in further, unless y'all have film notes, questions. Do y'all have questions on the film notes?
Don't think so.
I was trying to think of one.
How do you coach guys not to get beat by double moves?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have no clue.
Not jumping down too early.
And that let's talk about it. What's the problem defensively? What would you guys say the problem is defensively?
The problem defensively is everyone, including people who shouldn't be doing it, are playing way too inconsistently. We talked about, Malachi Starks had a couple of plays on Saturday. Same thing happened against Bama where guys are like, you are too good, you're too experienced to be making that play, to not be making that play, to be making that mistake. And I think it rears its ugly head, and teams are taking advantage of it more than they ever have against Georgia this year.
I ran down and did some exercises. I tweeted, obviously everybody knows you lost Kamari Lassiter, Javon Bullard, both of which were draft eligible juniors last year. They had an additional year. So those guys leave. Everyone knows they're great. They're NFL starters. Everyone's pointed to that. Tyke Smith was out of eligibility, but that's a loss. That's an NFL starter at a position that you had to replace. Everybody's pointed to that. But here's where you really compound the issues. All right, you really compound the issues because we would assume, I'm going to run through a list of players, and if they've transferred out, we've assumed it's either because they're a miss or they transferred out because there was not playing time available for them, which means the guys that were in front of them, Dalen Everett, Daniel Harris, Julian Humphrey, were presumed to be better than them or were above them on the depth chart. Agreed?
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, let's talk about these guys. Jaheim Singletary on Arkansas's roster, a top 100 player, never panned out for you. Nyland Green, a 5-star, top 100 player out of high school, playing for Purdue right now, never panned out. Marcus Washington, a 4-star, a top 250 player that you reclassed, didn't work out, has now transferred twice. A.J. Harris, a really good player, starting for Penn State right now, transferred out because it didn't look like he was going to get onto the field for you because he was buried on the depth chart. Chris Peel, still very much to be determined. That's just the corner room. That's just the corner room where, 5 or 6 of those guys are top 100 players that just didn't pan out. So is that they didn't pan out because they didn't pan out, or is that a miss, right? A miss. I don't know. There's a variety of different reasons there. I wouldn't call Nyland Green a miss. I would call Nyland Green an inopportunity to play. Where were you going to play him? The other guys were better, right? You go to the safety position. It's not just corner. You go to safety. David Daniel, we can classify that now as a miss. He never played meaningful football for Georgia and was a top 100 football player. Justin Rhett is 100% to be determined right now. Kyron Jones, 100% to be determined right now. Guys, that's 11 names.
Yeah.
That's 11 names in a position where you can't afford to go 3 for 11.
Right.
You can't afford to go 4 for 11 because, yes, a lot of these guys would normally be on your roster if transfer portal rules didn't exist, but they're gone. They're off your roster. So, yes, this is the best you've had available because the other guys didn't pan out.
I think that the way I would push back to that is it almost seems like, you have an inexperienced defensive back room right now. Outside of Dalen Everett and Malachi Starks, I would say, you have an inexperienced defensive back room. Dan Jackson has been around for forever. He hasn't played and started a lot of football for Georgia because of the names that you've listed that are now in the NFL. He's dealt with some injuries over his career. Dalen Everett's a returning starter. Malachi Starks is. Jonah Aguero in his first year starting. Julian Humphrey played a little bit last year, first year starting. Daniel Harris, first time getting some meaningful reps this year. KJ Bowles, a true freshman. So my only pushback is, it would be great to have those guys on the roster, and it sucks that you missed, but I don't think they solve this problem of you're still young and you're still inexperienced in this area of football.
The point of doing this exercise to me is that none of those football players were better than the ones that you have now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which means you're not good enough, right? You're not as good as you were, I should say.
Definitely.
You're plenty good. A lot of teams in college football would take your defensive backcourt right now and be extremely pleased.
Oh, yeah.
But you are not.
And it's a combination of there's been a experience and talent drop off a little bit from where there was last year, and combine the fact with, like we said earlier, there's been way too much inconsistent play. Malachi Starks is a first-round NFL draft pick. He's probably 95% likely going to be the first safety taken off the board wherever he goes. He should not be making the mistakes he's making. You need the guys that are the veterans in the group to be your rocks, and you haven't really had that. Go back to the 21 defense that was so solid. Lewis Seen, first-round draft pick, was a rock. Chris Smith, a rock. You had guys like that. Keely Ringo was susceptible to making mistakes. He was young. It was his first year starting. We saw this. Even Darian Kendrick, it was his first year in that season. You needed your guys that were your veterans that had been in that program to be rocks, and you're not seeing that as much through this season, I don't think. And I think that's really affecting your defense negatively as well.
Do you guys know we have a no context film guy?
I saw this weekend.
Yeah, we have a no context film guy network Twitter account, and it is as sus as you would expect it to be.
What the hell made you think of that?
I got tagged just now.
Okay.
He's tagging us in the middle of the show.
Gotcha.
Might mess around and get a job.
All right.
Any other major concerns about this defense right now other than the defensive backfield? You're not as good as you've been in years past at linebacker.
No,
you're not. And, losing Smile definitely hurt. But I do think it's interesting that Chris Cole is getting a lot of burn right now.
Yeah.
He's the one that's getting a lot of playing time.
Super freak athlete.
Yeah, he is. I think he's had some bright spots. The DPI, that's just kind of one of those freshman moments.
A little grabby.
A little grabby when you didn't need to be, probably. You were in the right spot to make a play. But, yeah, outside of that, I would say that the defense is good. Again, it's just like these singular moments where you have things go wrong, they really go wrong, and they hurt you big time.
Is this also a product of you're just kind of watching the fallout of, you don't have extraordinary world-beating defenses now? Like 2021 is arguably the best college football defense ever. 2022, there were still a lot of those players on there. 2023, turns out you had three NFL starters in your backfield.
It's your best version of the defensive backfield yet.
Yeah. So, the fact that those guys aren't there, I think that you're throwing up these panic buttons and red flags, Right, it's not as good as it was in the past 3 years. It probably wasn't going to be maintainable because of what you had.
I really do think we're at the same spot in the defensive backfield we were last year and the interior of the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's like, no shit, you've lost 5 first-round draft picks or 5 NFL starters over the last 2 years. This is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And I think that this, and the point of me pointing out that they are inexperienced is I think this is a room that is going to get better. Like we've seen KJ Bolden get better throughout the season. He's playing well. He's one of the players that is not out of spot, and he's not having any busted assignments right now. He's playing good football. So I think that they will get better. But I also did have it in my notes of the defensive line was a big concern in this offseason, and they've been the biggest bright spot on the defense.
Mm-hmm. And I will say this. I do think one other thing that's negatively affecting your secondary is you don't have a guy that can shut down one side of the field this year.
No.
Like Dalen Everett's a very
You're playing more zone than I've ever seen.
Right. Dalen Everett's a very good corner. He's not an absolute strap. He wasn't what Kamari Lasser was. He wasn't, for the last 2 years for that. And then in 2021, you had Darian Kendrick.
Yeah.
Like, you've always had kind of a strap on defense, and that's not to say that your corners are bad, but there's not someone that you can say, all right, you're going to be in man for 95% of your defensive snaps today, and they're just not going to throw at you because they'll never have anyone open.
How far are we away from him finding out whether or not Ellis Robinson can swim?
I think you got a taste of it on Saturday.
I think so,
I think
too.
that was kind of a
I think it's a teaser.
Let's see what you got.
And I wish I had the time or the photographic memory. I wonder how many times Kirby Smart has given a kid props for 2 consecutive great weeks of practice, only to just, there he goes. And I remember listening to him talk about Malachi in that first Oregon game. He said, oh, man, he had a great last 2 weeks of fall camp. It's that 2 weeks theory. Maybe hey, let's see if the 5-star can swim.
I mean, and it also goes back to the comment he made at the beginning of the season of he's never had a hungrier young player not beat out a veteran player.
And there's few hungrier, I would imagine, than what Ellis Robinson's got going on right now.
Especially when you dang near make a play like that on Saturday of, oh, I can do that.
You think it's time?
I think it's time to just completely scrap the names off the list and say Ellis is the guy. But I think it's time to just – I mean, I don't think there's any harm in switching some things up. But I think that doing that at defensive back, I feel like you have to kind of be careful about that.
There's part of me that thinks, yes, absolutely, at this point in the season, let's see what the kid can do. There's also a part of me that doesn't want to buy into this. We saw him make one good play on the ball on Saturday. Yeah. In a pass that, let's be fair, was underthrown.
And out of bounds.
Yes. So he in Georgia Twitter immediately said, we need that. That's what we need. That's what, and everyone does that all the time. And I want to be hesitant on that. I have no problems with Ellis Robinson getting on the field. I think it could end up being very positive. I don't want Ellis Robinson to get on the field because of what he did on that one play on Saturday.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
I would agree with that.
Because the last time we saw him in meaningful snaps, he did kind of panic on a PI.
Yeah. Yes, he
Clemson.
seemed very out of control.
Now, that was 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a totally different player.
Correct.
So, all right, you're trying to get this one off the floor, so I'll let you take it. Is Carson Beck back in the Heisman race?
Look, and this isn't just by proxy of the – we all know he had a stat line. 3 touchdowns, over 400 passing yards. It was Mississippi State, I get it, but if he keeps doing that, 1, and 2, if we keep seeing the other finalists turn in these performances, Cam Ward's a loss away from falling off of this. Travis Hunter might not play next week, and they just lost. So, I mean, now Ashton Genty is doing Ashton Genty shit right now, and that's a problem. But, I mean, there's not a world – you said it was dead and gone. And I think this week proved more than anything that he is more than able to kind of get his way back.
Dead and gone.
Shout out Timberlake.
Dead and gone. That's all I remember from that song.
I said Bobo took your comments personally.
He did, dude.
My comments?
Yeah.
Mm.
Threw it 32 times in the first half at 316 yards.
53 times total in this game?
Yeah.
Chunking it.
Absolutely.
Do it against Texas and win.
That's what I was about to say.
Do it against Texas and win.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And we'll have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Until then, no.
All right.
I don't even care if you go 275 and win the game. No.
Really?
350. Be the reason that you win that football game this weekend. You are the Heisman favorite.
275. Here's the catch.
Be the reason.
275, 75-yard drive, 2-minute drill to win the game.
Be the reason. Not one reason in that game, but be the reason that your football team goes on the road and wins that game, and you can be in the Heisman discussion.
I will say this. I think Carson Beck is playing like he's the best quarterback in the country right now. I think that he is playing that way.
This is a take.
Well, you had this conversation of like I would almost tell Carson to throw an interception, and whether the end zone interception was on him or not, that was a tight ball that you were going to have to fit in, regardless of if it ended up in an interception or not. I mean, he threw that ball and he ripped it. And I think that we saw some of those things on Saturday. And you're trusting this guy right now to throw it 52 times. I know that the run game, you're not getting a whole lot of success, but I think that Saturday did kind of show or give at least a little bit of preview of if we got to put it on 15 shoulders, then we absolutely can do that. I think the Alabama game was a foreshadowing of that as well of if the dude doesn't fumble the football and he doesn't throw 3 interceptions in that football game, then 15 wins that football game by himself. He's the reason why you win that football game. So I would say over the last 3-4 games, even when he wasn't at his best against Auburn, like maybe health-wise, that dude was playing like I'm taking this offense to where it needs to be.
Look, I love Carson Beck as much as the next guy, but he ain't playing like the best quarterback in college football right now. That's hot.
Do you guys remember when I said that after watching him in the second half of the Alabama game that we would see the most confident version of Carson Beck we'd ever seen?
Yeah.
It just so happened that he came out and threw for 450 yards. And
the week after he threw for 275 against Auburn? What are we doing here?
When I say
what are we doing here?
What I meant by he's playing like it, I just mean like when he's on the field, like that's the mindset it seems like he's playing with.
Oh, he's playing more confidently.
Not Carson Beck, bona fide best quarterback in the country now.
I'm saying
he's playing with like he knows that. He's aware of that in himself.
Lambo confidence.
I would say you would see the most confident version of Carson Beck from here on out, and I think that's what you've seen. Name one part of the Auburn game where he didn't look like he was in control or confident in what he was doing.
That's fair.
And
I can explain both of the interceptions away this weekend. He did after the game. One's tipped, never putting that on the cue, ever. And the other one he thought was a blatant PI, so he threw it at it, which is actually a really smart thing to do, unless it doesn't go your way, and then you look like a blatant idiot on the internet, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is so bad," doing that thing. It's a hot take, though.
Again, I wasn't saying that Carson Beck is the
but if there were a fan ready to clip us and make us look stupid.
I mean, shoot, you want to try
or
to make
biased, not stupid, biased. Look at these homers.
Well, then I'll clip the second part and show them what I actually meant.
Hell yeah.
Simple as that.
Just there, who's playing better right now?
Cam Ward's playing more confidently and better. I would say Quinn Ewers, when healthy, was playing better.
Yeah, but that was 3 weeks ago now. J-Will said right now.
Cade Klubnik's playing
good football. I was about to say, you're not going to like the answer.
Yeah, Cade Klubnik's playing good football.
It's hot.
I guess I should have just said Carson Beck is playing with some absolute the most confidence he's had in his entire career right now.
Would you be doing that 2 weeks ago?
Anthony Evans got real burn this weekend, boys.
Yeah, he did.
Real burn.
Yeah, he did.
Now, this could be, and I don't really care if it is, but it's certainly a byproduct of the Colby Young thing.
Yeah.
But I think we noticed something Saturday, and it's a narrowing of the rotation. They played 5 receivers on Saturday.
That's it?
5.
I have the question of, is that a good thing?
I think so. I've been wanting Georgia to do this for a while. If you got 4 good ones, just play the 4. If the 5th wants to leave because he's not good enough.
Yeah, but we talked about this part of the game. Injuries are a part of this game. And
Correct.
You have to anticipate one of those 4 at some point is not going to be available. And history states George Pickens, A.D. Mitchell, Arian Smith, those guys do get injured at some point in the season and will miss extended periods of time. Would you rather we have 3 really good wide receivers and now a guy who we've thrown in there has no run at all? I'm not saying that I want the bigger rotation.
This is, in my opinion, one of the primary areas that Kirby Smart differs from Nick Saban. Nick Saban would ride his horses into the damn ground. Derrick Henry would have 45 totes. Najee Harris would have 32 carries. The Devontae Smith would have 20 targets in a football game. His best players were always ridden until their tongues were dragging. And you could say that maybe it impacted their futures in the NFL. But damn, if he won some college football games off the back. And I do think there could be a fine line between five guys is enough at the wide receiver position. When you play 3, 5 guys is plenty. And 5 guys being Arian Smith, Dominic Lovett, Dylan Bell, London Humphreys, and Anthony Evans. If the 6 doesn't present himself, then play the 5, right? And that's I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
I love the idea of just keeping your guys in a groove, and I think too with 5, you can identify the 3 maybe that day that are really feeling it, that are really having their best days, and you can start riding with them more. So I love the idea that Anthony Evans is getting more reps, and I love that he's getting more playing time. So I'm interested to see what this wide receiver room does moving forward, because I thought Saturday they had their best game of the season, I would say.
Apparently we just had a mic glitch, so I guess a wire got crossed or shorted. But nah, this was every time Anthony Evans is like in a crowd of 5 people, and I'm looking through the lens and I'm taking photos, and then the next thing I know, 5 spits out of all of the people and just making more and more plays. It's nuts.
And I would say too, one thing that I noticed watching the TV broadcast on Saturday is Anthony Evans would go in, he'd make his play, he'd come out, Kirby's immediately standing there next to him, talking either about the play. And so it feels like to me like that's someone they're trying to coach him into getting more playing time, I would say.
I mean, I think you're at a point where you have to now.
Facts. Absolute facts. Kirby went viral this weekend for not the best scenario.
Yeah.
No.
Van Buren runs into the sideline. Kirby is yelling at Glenn Schumann viscerally, getting into that ass, and bumps into Van Buren. Now, I haven't seen all of the angles of this, but apparently there's an angle where it looks as if he doesn't touch him hardly at all. But there's the one that went out on national television where he looks like he pushes Van Buren, and the internet took to it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There are people saying Kirby Smart needs to be fired, comparing it to the Woody Hayes incident, which is insane.
What did Woody do again?
Oh, bro.
Yeah.
This man walks over, grabs a face. It was a Clemson player, I believe. Grabs a face mask of a Clemson player and starts punching him.
Yeah.
Not the same.
So what I just did was a little version of APA formatting. You assume your audience members don't know anything. So I obviously knew.
We knew what you were
Woody Hayes
doing.
thing. He looked at me like he didn't know.
Yeah, I knew what you were doing.
I knew what you were doing.
I mean, watching it live happen, I think everybody, you could tell nobody in that instance that watched it happen knew what to do. The TV broadcast is saying, oh, Kirby Smart lost his visor there. You look at the referee, he's
The referee
doing double
The
takes.
referee triple took Kirby.
and he's like, got his hand on the flag, like, do I throw this? Do I not? I don't know what just happened. And Van Buren, too, was like, whoa, like, but we were good. The only thing that I would say that I wish could have changed about this situation is I think that somebody, because Kirby Smart said he didn't know, like he didn't know.
He was
it
asked
happened.
about a post game, and he's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think that somebody in the Georgia space, like on that staff or whoever, like whoever your PR person is, whatever, should have been like, hey, don't know if you're aware of this. This happened. People are seeing it. I think it's best if you just get in front of it and be like, yeah, got to heed the moment. Didn't realize what was going on in that moment.
Honestly, they're so buttoned up. I thought he was going to mention it in the opening statement.
Yeah.
I thought in the opening statement he was going to say thanks to the fans and then say, hey, I want to take time out to address what happened between Van Buren and I. I just, whatever happened.
The reason I think he didn't, and honestly, because this happened in the fourth quarter of the game. Like, this was later towards the game. I don't think it had gotten that much steam virality-wise. Like, this started popping off on Sunday is what I realized. A lot of people were saying, oh, my God, Kirby Smart, I can't believe he did this. It wasn't really during the moment. Like, I don't think they anticipated this becoming such a big thing, so viral, because it was not what people are trying to make it.
We've got a ton of people in here. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. I think it's very clear if you know Kirby Smart what happened. He's blacked out in a fury
tunnel
of rage.
vision.
Yeah, tunnel vision. And he was absolutely getting after his coordinator.
Yeah, go back and watch that play, and I understand it's from the back. Tell me at what point does it look like Kirby Smart is making eye contact with Michael Van Buren at all?
Never.
Or the referee? Because the initial thing was, oh, Kirby Smart's pushed Michael Van Buren to argue with the referee. Never once looked towards the referee. He was yelling at Glenn Schumann the entire time.
Yeah.
So,
And if you want further analysis on how does Kirby Smart treat opposing players, go watch the Keely Ringo interception. Who's the first person to pick up Bryce Young when he falls down the sideline? Kirby Smart. So is it Kirby Smart went over and shoved a guy for some reason, or is it he bumped into him and probably...
He clearly thought it was somebody coming off his own side.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And you can push your own player.
Yeah, I would say
Don't push somebody else.
it's no big deal.
You're right. The PR management on it could have been much better.
That was, and that's a very slight, minuscule thing of mine.
Yeah.
Of like, that was the only thing I would have said. Like, I would have liked that, but outside of that, it's not that big of a deal.
All right, 3 takeaways. Let's give them 3. Who wants to start? I'll go first. Number 3, quarterbacks are going to apparently have the game of their lives against you.
No OLI?
No OLI.
Interesting.
Quarterbacks are apparently going to have the game of their lives against you this year, and I've kind of felt this way over the last couple of years. Brock Vandagriff's never looked better than he did against Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I would argue that Ole Miss's defense a little bit worse than Georgia's.
Fair.
My man Peyton Thorne never looked better than he looked last week against Georgia.
I was thinking more the Cade Klubnik area, but
Cade Klubnik has grown since then, looked bad. Van Buren has the game of his life this weekend and making throws that everyone, including his own head coach, thought he was incapable of making.
yeah.
Lebby ran the ball 50 times last week for a reason. They didn't think this dude could throw the ball.
To start the game, he looked horrible.
Yeah.
He was throwing the ball behind
Bro,
wide
he was throwing
receivers.
out routes 5 yards away. I was like, damn,
Yeah.
this is going to be a long day for Mississippi State.
Plants into the dirt.
And I think that kind of just goes to show at the quarterback spot, especially someone in that position where they are a young football player with limited experience. He watched one ball go down, and it was,
I'm him.
yeah, let's do it.
Look
let's
out.
Keep rolling.
Takeaway number 2, Dan Jackson is your best defensive back.
Yeah.
He's your most consistent for sure.
He's just your best.
He's your best right
Yeah.
now.
He's your best. He's playing better football right now
Insane.
than anybody
I mean,
else in
he's
your defensive
flying
backfield.
around
And it's
the
so
field.
fun to watch.
It's almost by a mile.
Yeah.
Not a -1 in the last 3 weeks of film studies that we've done on Dan Jackson. Not once have I said, oh, look, 17, bad play.
There was a bad feel against the Auburn game.
Okay.
I feel like he
Didn't set the edge, actually, believe it or not.
Dan Jackson is playing with the most decisiveness out of everybody in the secondary right now.
certainly the most confident.
That's what's showing up on tape of when he sees an alley and he's in the backfield, he's making the tackle. He's playing with
One more
he's
time
just-
on that sound effect. One more. Elite. Number 1, maybe you're an elite offense when things work right. Maybe.
I would say
The
you
Kentucky
are.
game's really throwing up a question into this for me
Yeah,
because it was bad.
it was bad.
There's not a lot of execution around
But-
all of the football.
But also, things weren't working right exactly there.
So when things are working
Yeah,
right,
when things are
you're an
working-
elite offense.
I would also say that over the last 3 years, you've had those Kentucky games.
Yeah, that is a fact.
Over the last 3 years, with the exception of 2021, you've had the stretch that you've just had, where it's 3 games of this team's going to be competing for national titles. Are we sure?
I wish I wasn't a chronic alcoholic during the 2022 season because I might be able to remember it. I might be able to remember what actually happened. I might be able to actually give you a temperament of what the fan base felt like during that
The
time.
fan from Kent State to when they finally beat the hell out of Auburn was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
You
No, I remember. I remember feeling that way, or the fan base feeling that way. I don't remember it being this visceral of doubt because you were fresh off a national
You were
title.
fresh off a national title.
So you
yes.
probably thought we're just going to get it right.
Yes. And it was, well, even if we don't get it right this year, we'll always have last year to look up on. And then it was, hey guys, we're trying to win a three-peat here. Let's not complain too much. Now you're at the point where you've gone a full calendar year without a national title. Fans are getting a little antsy again. So,
Well, antsy in the pantsy.
Man, been a year and a half.
It's too long.
Absolute struggle.
oh yeah, the people who are like, I'll cheer for our football team when we start playing better. Dude, you've lost. There's people on Twitter doing that.
No, I know.
Dude, you've lost one regular season game in 3 years. What are you talking about?
Hey, that boy Brooksy, give him 3. Who's up next?
I mentioned it earlier, but I'll hit it again right now. The defensive line has become the brightest spot of this defense. It was the biggest concern in the preseason, though. I think that you've had bright spots from individuals, too, on this defensive line sporadically throughout the entire season. TID has had some bright spots. Warren Brinson has had some bright spots. Nazir Stackhouse, Kristen Miller, oh my gosh. She's been so consistent for this defensive line, and it's stepped up majorly for them.
Is that the most improved player on the team right now? Kristen Miller?
Dan
would say
Jackson's going to make a tough push for that. I mean, to go from where he was last year to kind of a reserve player on the bench, he's got dealing with injuries too. Hey, that's your best defensive back right now.
I mean,
in a room where there's Malachi Starks.
Didn't Kristen do the same thing? He was a backup role player
Yeah.
last year, and now is the best and most consistent rundown player on the interior of the defensive line.
I would say there's 3 names worthy of being in that mix of Kristen Miller, Jalen Walker, and Dan Jackson. But Jalen Walker's more so. They just found more opportunities
They found more
for the
room
guy.
for him to
They
breathe.
found more room for him to fully display what he can do.
And
over
there's
4
still
quarters.
obvious signs of needed growth as an
Yeah.
inside linebacker for Jalen.
Yeah.
The touchdown run Saturday is a prime example.
Yeah,
He
but
just didn't fit that correctly.
defensive line, and I feel like the defensive line is getting better too. Like they've been playing well all year, but Saturday you dominated against a team that you should have dominated against, and they showed it. They played really well. I thought as a collective unit they played really well. So that was my first one. Number 2, the offense is starting to get there. It feels as if the confidence is growing. I feel like like I mentioned it with Carson Beck. The only thing that I would say that you need more confidence in is the run game, because if you can get the confidence in the run game, I think everybody can see it of Trevor Etienne. We want to see it. And I think that Nate Frazier and him, it feels like the whole season's like, they're so close.
For the first time Saturday, watching Georgia's offense through the camera lens, I predicted a play. Truck sweep. Way too many.
Oh, there's
Just way too many truck sweeps on
It's
Saturday.
also, when they line up in trips bunch with 2 tight ends, it's a screen. They'll go Urosic and Lucky or Delp and Lucky. It's a screen. Trips bunch, watch. And they'll put a speedster out there. They'll put Arian, they'll put Anthony Evans. It's a screen.
So we're getting some tendencies here on the Film Guy Network, just being certified ball
To the
knowers.
point where I was in the box saying that, and people were looking at me like, what?
That's the best.
It's so much fun.
It's the freaking
when
best.
people are like, who is this kid?
Yeah.
Because I don't really talk to people when I go in the
Dude,
box.
the first time it happened to me was Florida, Georgia, 2019. And they mistook me
Yeah.
mistook me for a national SI rider. All right. So they thought that I should be sitting with all the big boys. So I'm sitting with like Pat Forty, Andy Staples was working for the Athletic at the time. Mr. College Football was right next to me. All these like legends of sports journalism, and I'm right in the middle of them. And I remember at that time, the biggest tendency of a James Coley offense was, James Cook's lined up in the slot and going in jet motion. He's certainly getting the football. And as soon as they did it, I said, jet sweep. And the whole, just like you're talking about, the whole row looked down at me like, who is this wizard? And I'm like, guys, it's just like the smallest amount of football knowledge. That's it.
That's pre-Film Guy Network days too.
Yeah, that was pre people even knowing what
Yeah.
this is or what that football knowledge was able to be had as a media observer. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like that Saturday was a good day to build some confidence for the offense. I thought a lot of players were showing that. I thought your wide receiver group showed that as well. My third one, the more I watch other teams, the more I realize Georgia is better than what people think. Go and watch the teams that everybody was worried about in the SEC of Alabama beats Georgia. Well, then Alabama loses to Vanderbilt. They have a scare with South Carolina. Oh, Tennessee's offense, Nico's playing really well. Tennessee's had lost to Arkansas. They had a scare with Florida. I just think all around in college football, you're seeing more and more of this is just a balanced level and playing ground of college football. You hit on it earlier in the show during the national hour. So I think that the more I watch more college football, the more I watch and say, there's just a lot of football teams that are just kind of on the same level. And so Georgia is still a good football team. And just because they're not the certified #1 team, they're the natty favorite right now, that doesn't mean that this is a bad football team. If there's any cause for concern, they're still a really good football team.
Yeah, and Kirby Smart talked about this after his Auburn presser, where the wave of emotion that is college football. We're just trying to stay even keel. And if you look around at a lot of these teams that are in the top 10, Georgia has remained for the most part the most consistent, with the exception of the first half against the Alabama game. It's stayed very much baseline throughout. Now they have had bad performances. They have looked pedestrian at times, but there's never been a oh my god, this is disgusting. This is terrible.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, that boy Jay Will. Give him 3. What's up, Curb?
All right, so my first one is this team has yet to play a complete game of football on either sides of the ball. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum at this point. Mistakes on the defense, busting coverage, offense, we're not hitting certain shots. Offensive line plays inconsistent. We're missing blocks when we need to. We're always, seemingly one play away from busting this wide open.
I would go even further. I don't think they've played a single half where both units were playing at their best.
No, yeah, that's all I'm talking about. Like it's either
Zero complimentary
it's either like,
football.
hey, offense looks really good right now. Well, defense is giving up massive shots. Okay, well, defense is locking it down right now. Offense can't really get anything going. It's frustrating to watch at times, but it's also hopeful to watch because you have to assume that at some point Kirby Smart and this Georgia staff is going to get it right, and Georgia is going to turn into a complete football game. And I think that you will see that they are probably one of the better teams in the country when they can do that. So that's my first one. The second one is this offense is more than capable of being explosive. People have kind of talked about how, Georgia can't do explosives. They're going to have to walk it down. Carson Beck, not an elite quarterback. There have been multiple times where the explosives have been there. They just don't execute. And now they're getting to the point where they're executing more.
It's been 4 years. Is anybody going to stop a deep cross against Georgia?
I don't know.
Anybody.
I mean, that's also hard to stop because you have to have your hook curl dropping deep enough, and then if they don't.
Listen to this guy. Listen to this guy. Come on. Keep going.
What's up? Say if they do drop deep enough, you'll just throw the underneath and check it out.
Get me right
And
off.
that's why Carson Beck was one of the better processors in college football.
Boy, have I raised this football knower correctly. Keep talking.
Okay, well then, what was that? Offense is more than capable of being explosive. The third reason is defense isn't going to be 2021, 2022 great, not even 2023 great. You're going to have to lean on your offense more if you want to be a national championship contender this season. And I know we've talked about how in certain moments you had to do it in 22 against Ohio State. You had to do it somewhat in 21 against Alabama. You needed that offense to really get you going in the fourth quarter of that game. 2023, you kind of had to do it in certain areas. You're going to really need them to do it this year. You're going to need them to do it against Texas. You need them to do it against Bama, and ended up not being able to help them out on defensive end. So the offense, I think, is going to be the reason you win a national championship this season, not the defense. And the mantra around Georgia football has always been, they won because of their defense carried the offense. I don't think that's going to be the case this year.
Slick kind of think I was on this network like within the last 3 weeks saying they might be able to defense their way
I think that
to
was
an
last
elite
week.
football team. I don't feel that way no more.
No,
I think they can offense their way
and
to it.
I think that's also been a thing this season of the opinions have been
Constantly wavering.
so up and down.
Because
Like
their performance has been.
I mean, after the Kentucky game, I said the secondary was the best unit on this football team, and I think that and then the next three games, the secondary. What the heck happened to you guys? You guys feel like the worst unit on this defense now. So it's just been very up and down, and all air like. Offensive line had a really rough patch, and there was major questions there. Then it was the wide receivers. Then Carson Beck has a rough patch a little bit. And so it's just been kind of spread all around. So maybe that's a sign of now that they've all gone through this phase, maybe they all get it cleaned up.
We up, baby.
But let me
We up.
Let me also propose this. Would you not rather have a team that shows you they can win multiple ways? Hey, we can win a disgusting, snotty
I'd rather
game.
the team that shows me they can win multiple ways show me that they can't lose multiple ways.
That's true, but and that's the give and take from it. But I would feel more secure knowing, hey, there's a chance that if our defense doesn't come out to play, our offense can pick up the slack. You know, if both units don't come out and play well, it is what it is. You're just going to have a shitty game. Like, that's what it is. But I would feel better, like, going into 2021, and we reference this all the time because it's, the pinnacle of what a great Georgia team was. If that defense didn't show up, 2021 SEC championship, your offense wasn't going to will you to a win. 2022 is a perfect example of that, where your defense didn't really show up against Ohio State. You had to rely on your offense to win that game. And at times it looked like, hey, Georgia's offense doesn't look that great this year. So I feel better the fact that you have a team right now that can win with both offensive firepower, where you can say, hey, we need 650 yards of total offense, 40 points out of our quarterback, as opposed to, hey, we need you to hold the SEC offense to 12 points this game because we're not going to be able to do much on offense. Now, obviously, yes, that does come with we can lose multiple ways now because there's more holes, but I would feel better about being able to win multiple ways.
I guess Rodgers threw another Hail Mary to win a football game.
To win?
Or maybe halftime.
Classic.
About the only thing that guy can do except
because they fired the coach.
Yeah, you're right. All right, let's do game balls. Okay, game balls from Saturday's win. Offensively, I'm giving it to Carson. The two interceptions were 100% explainable. Thought he played really, really good football. Defense, I think it's Dan Jackson. If it's not Dan Jackson, I'll leave the other one for you guys. I think the other one is pretty obvious. And coaching, I'm giving it to Bobo.
I wanted to give defensive to Dan Jackson, but I'm going to give it to Christian Miller because I agree that they have been the two, shining lights on this defense. Not that it's been bad this year, but if you're saying, hey, point to me the players who are playing the best football right now, it's those two.
Mm.
So there's one. Offensively, I went Arian Smith.
Mm.
And I did this kind of because I knew you were going to go Carson Beck, but also, I mean, the impact that he's had explosively, it's clear, and I know there's been criticisms about his ability to catch. It's clear that he is one of the best receivers in that room at getting separation.
And played tough as hell Saturday.
Absolutely.
Got banged up on that big catch he had in the first half and came back in that game. And that was a brutal layout for that football.
On the football.
And the way he landed on the ball,
Right
and
in the
then
sternum.
and immediately, the great part about that was he immediately turned around and put his back on the ground so the ball didn't get dislodged and hit the turf. I mean, a great play, and the first in 5 years, the first true sign of, oh, you're a tough ass football player.
Yes.
You are a tough ass football player, and we know that now. I've seen that now. Not just, oh, look, he's trying to block. Oh, look, he's showing effort in these areas of growth that he needs to have. Oh, he's becoming a better route runner. No. Arian Smith got stamped as a football player this weekend and verified the rest of time.
Yeah, and I mean, we always had the concerns.
Now catch the ball consistently.
Yeah, we always had the concerns coming in of, is his body physically able to keep up with this sport? Because, he was a big track
It's been year
guy.
after year, too.
Yeah, he's done it he hasn't had a bad injury for 3 seasons now.
Did you give all 3 already?
No, my defensive game ball goes to Trey Scott. I mean, they had that run game on lock for the first 2.5 quarters of that game. Things started getting a little dicey in the second half when they were starting to open it up a little bit. You had to move some guys around, but Trey Scott and that defensive line. And again, we talked about coming into the season, that was the question mark, and that's been the shining light so far.
I'm going to go with Dylan Bell as my offensive game ball. He had another solid day. I think it was 8 receptions, 86 yards, and an incredible touchdown in the back of the end zone. That was both a great play by Carson Beck and a great job by Dylan Bell to both catch the ball at the high point and get your foot down as well.
My photos of that are hilarious. I have Dylan calling for the ball, and then you see him jump, and he goes out of my lens, and his leg enters my lens. And then that Mississippi State defensive back enters my lens with this look on his face of, I just gave up a tud.
Yeah. So I thought it was a great day from Dylan Bell. So I'm going to give him some shouts. Defensively, I'm going Chaz Chambliss. Chaz Chambliss had some very great individual plays. The end around where he's basically your last resort. If he doesn't make the tackle, then he's got – what you guess I'm going to say?
I mean, Jonathan, he doesn't get after the quarterback.
Yeah, it doesn't set the edge.
And when he does, he gets face mask penalty.
Yeah. Can't even sack the guy right.
Gosh. But yeah, he was your last resort to tackle the guy, sheds the block, dives after the guy, makes the tackle. And then when he was on 3rd and long in a situation, no, it was a face mask, but he got after the quarterback. I thought Chaz Chambliss played a great football game on Saturday.
I love the Chaz doesn't get sacks. Yeah, because Chaz doesn't play on 3rd and 9.
Well, I don't know who said it but when Chaz makes that play, someone leans over in the media room and goes, "Take that, Twitter." I don't know who said it, but
is there a ball knower up there?
It sounds like it.
And then my coaching game ball, I was close to giving it to Trey Scott. I'm going with Coach Uzo. I thought that his unit had a great day. I thought Damon Wilson played really well. Jalen Walker flashed some more. And Chaz Chambliss as well had another solid day.
We have a super chat from Alan Berry, who I believe is an Alabama fan based off this. So this might be our first Alabama super chat. Almost did it again. I keep seeing Georgia people saying, quote, Texas hasn't played anybody, Paul, but they said the same thing about Alabama. Also, why is Kane Womack so stubborn with not making adjustments and staying in cover 1? Good news for you, Alan. He broke Tennessee. He broke his stubbornness. He played a lot of zone coverage this past weekend. As for why people are saying that Texas hasn't played anybody, it's the only negative you got. That's it. If you're looking for a hole to punch into Texas, you have one singular hole. They ain't played nobody, Paul. You can't talk about how bad the defense is because the defense is top 5 in the country. You can't talk about the quarterback because the quarterback's a first-round caliber quarterback. You can't talk about the offensive line because the offensive line's got a first-round draft pick at left tackle. You can't talk about the losses at the running back position because they've managed to run the football well. You have nothing to look at Texas and say this is an area of concern they have, except for you don't know if they have areas of concern because they ain't played nobody, Paul.
Well said, well said.
You better, I said it on Twitter, you better clamor tight. You better hold on to that one because that's the only sense of we're not getting into a shootout this weekend you have if you're a Georgia fan.
Well,
because that's how I ain't picked it yet. And I got the study coming tomorrow. But this has got 35-34 fourth quarter football game written all over it.
I'm at the point in this season now where nothing's certain.
Nothing certain?
Nothing is certain.
Trust nothing. Trust no one.
Trust nothing. That's the motto for the season.
That's a great motto to have. Tremendous motto to have.
Thanks, man.
Do we want to do this Arian Smith hit, or do we want to give the first look at Texas and then give some nostalgia tape? What do you want to do? We got 3 options here, and I think we got time for 2 of them.
Let's do the first look at Texas.
I think the first look's a good call. Let me rotate back to this. I sent a screenshot of this into our Discord channel this morning and might have caused some signs of
We
panic.
also have another super sub before you.
All right, we'll get to that in just a second. First watch notes. You ready? Quinn Ewers plays completely differently and totally dangerously if you're a defense with a lead. You give this guy a lead, he's already confident. He turns into 0 dark 30 mode. It's like it's clear the mechanism type of confidence. You do not want to be down 2 scores against this guy because he's going to play with complete reckless abandon. And honestly, it's when this offense plays its best. We already mentioned it. He left a lot of plays on that tape against Oklahoma, so much so that it's almost daunting. Like, they played that well as an offense. They were efficient as an offense, and the quarterback was not playing very well for the first, I'd say, 15, 20 minutes of this football game. That, to me, pretty scary. Sark's run game and the variety in the run game is extremely impressive. Georgia is an inside zone, duo, split zone, counter football team. Mm-hmm. Texas does all that and runs wide zone and has all the end arounds off of it like you guys, and does different stuff with the tight end in terms of insert, and does pin and pull. If there's a run scheme, Texas has it implemented into the game plan and runs it. So from we got to prepare for the whole thing, this is as diverse of a run game as it gets, not named a triple option football team. This is as many different looks and as many different packages and as many different run styles that you could possibly humanly have to prepare for. Ryan Wingo with the ball in his hands is terrifying. Terrifying. He's a true freshman. He is by far their most dynamic weapon. I know Isaiah Bond's great. It's looked really, really good. He left that game with an injury this past week. We'll see his availability as the week progresses. But Ryan Wingo is the guy they designed everything for. Every run after the catch opportunity is for Ryan Wingo. Every design end around is for Ryan Wingo because he is elite with the ball in his hands afterwards. As every Sarkisian offense does, they motion with purpose. If they're motioning, they're doing so to get you to do something that they want you to do. All right, so be very alert as to what motion packaging they're using because they're trying to do something off of it throughout the football game. That's also something you should know about Sark in general. If he shows you something, understand there's a death shot coming off of that. He layers his concepts as well as any coordinator. Your coordinator does a really good job of this as well at Georgia. Most good coordinators do. They run wide zone really, really well. As I mentioned, they're coached extremely well at the running back position. I think it's why they haven't seen so much deterioration. They hit their keys. They hit their reads right. You won't see running backs press incorrect holes. They're extremely patient. Tashard Choice is their running backs coach. I would argue he's the best in the college football now that Dell has become a head football coach. So effing well coached. So effing well coached. The only way you can do this much stuff and never bust assignments is if you're well coached, and they're extremely well coached. There's a play that I'm going to show you in tomorrow's film study where there is a freshman in Ryan Wingo on the field, and he correctly tells the redshirt junior to the left of him what the defense is about to do. They get it figured out. They get it blocked post snap only because the true freshman was smart enough and well-coached enough to point it out. Tremendously well-coached football team from top to bottom. They do not bust assignments. That's the first look.
That's probably the more terrifying part about it because it's not a team that's going to shoot themselves in the foot.
Never.
You have to beat this team.
Never.
Which you're capable of doing. You have the roster that can do so. But you can't say, hey, maybe they'll shoot themselves in the foot here. Maybe we'll get a nice turnover, be opportunistic. You have to beat the team in their own stadium.
I don't want to tease my pick too much, because I said going into this week, I said last week I'm picking Georgia, or after the Alabama loss, I said I'm picking Georgia against everybody else because schemes don't beat you, teams do. You got schemed to hell on Saturday by Jeff Lebby. Makes me worried, but I'll figure it out as the week continues. And I don't know where I feel right now as a pick, but I do know that you're going to have to score with this football team. I don't think there's any doubts about that.
Gotcha.
Always knew that. No matter what the season looked like heading into this matchup, you knew from week 0 back in January of this year, previewing this matchup,
Score game.
You knew you were going to have to score points to beat Steve Sarkisian in Texas.
All right, this comes from Jay Patel. It's a super sub. We appreciate this as well. I was wondering, with all the talk about UGA being inconsistent, from your experience of playing football / analyzing football, what is the problem behind the scenes, or is there one? Coaching, no leaders, confidence. This is the difference between good and great football teams, and this is what I have come to learn the more and more years. And luckily, I don't know if I would have come to this realization had I not seen those great football teams. From 2021 on to 20, I would say last year they were a great football team that lost to a great football team last year in that SEC championship game. But great football teams consistently don't miss the tight end out of the backfield when he slips. Great football teams consistently run routes to the correct depth. Great football teams consistently make plays when they need to.
Hit the layups.
Yeah, they hit their layups. They take what is given to them consistently, and they don't beat themselves. They don't get personal fouls on 3rd and 9. That was the epitome of the differences between a great and a good football team. Good football teams get that personal foul Damon Wilson got on Saturday. Great football teams do not. They don't. They don't do it.
Yeah, I can read them all off of your crucial penalties. It was ETN had a 20-yard touchdown nullified by a hold. Chris Cole got called for pass interference on 3rd and 8. That extended the drive for Mississippi State. Led to a touchdown on that drive. On 3rd and 10, Chaz Chambliss had a sack that was nullified due to a face mask. And on 3rd and 10, Damon Wilson was called for roughing the passer on an incomplete pass that extended the drive.
Do we have a nostalgic tape prepared?
Oh, yeah, we have one pulled up.
Let's get that pulled up.
I can get it pulled up.
Is it fixable? Because that's the biggest question. Because you can somewhat fix
Which part?
the inconsistencies.
I don't know. Because it's not like I remember in 2020, I think it was 2022, there were moments where the offense was a problem, but there was never a problem where the defense showed signs of an inconsistent area. I thought maybe the star was gettable on vertical shots, but that's been every defense known to man for the last 5 years in college football.
Well, they also
you can get the nickel on a slot fade. Everybody.
They also busted a lot more on the inside game. Like Kent State had a really good screen. Missouri obviously had that long run. So, I mean, they were gettable in certain areas. You could catch them. 2021 was not catchable.
And last year they had that weird thing where they gave up opening possessions in like every single SEC football game.
Yeah.
There were certain areas of concern. But my problem with this football team is I can't go into a game knowing what they're going to be bad at.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
It makes you feel unworried.
Very much so. All right, let's take this nostalgic. Oh, wait.
Hang on. Turn to the board. Turn to the board.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
Oh.
You're good.
Oh.
I got to put it.
Oh, man. I can't wait for you to watch this.
Oh my God. What in the world? Buddy, look at that stance.
That's why I picked this. I'll go ahead and lead with this. This player started at the University of Georgia and was a.
What does that do for me? He started.
Well, I didn't want you to think like, oh, this is someone they picked. Like
This is some trash
No,
example here.
this was a major.
All right, so knowing you, I got to ask this question. Did this player transfer in?
He did.
He did? It's Eli Wolf.
Damn it.
I mean, get the fuck out of here.
He got you. He got you. He read you like a book.
All right.
I even said, this is diabolical what you're about to put up here.
You want another
was like,
chance at it?
Well, I saw it. I was like, what does Eli Wolf tape look like? And then I saw his stance. I was like, he's got to see that.
Oh, I would have gotten it right there immediately. Maybe not with the Ohio State clip, but yeah, too easy.
That's
too
fine.
easy.
That's fine.
Love it.
You should have given me the hint and said no more questions. Because the moment I asked if he transferred in, it was over with.
Yeah,
There's only so many white tight ends that have come to the University of Georgia
that's true.
that I don't know of. Like if you'd have popped Rabin County tape up, it would have been immediate. Charlie Warner. If you would have popped,
That's a problem.
You for your IMG.
Yeah.
That's where Isaac Nada came from.
if you would have hit Ryland Godey on me with Kennesaw Mountain, I'd have been right all over that one. Yeah, it's going to get harder and harder to pin me down on those.
Yeah, I mean, I'll find some.
All right. Great show. Great show. We got a great week of content continuing on this network here on the Film Guy Network. Tomorrow, I've got Texas offensive film study loading up. We're going to get that recorded at some point tomorrow. It'll be up and ready for your viewing. If you haven't already, please go watch that Tennessee offensive study. They've got a lot of problems that I don't think are 100% fixable at this moment in college football's timeline. All right. We also have Georgia defensive tape coming up, offensive tape will be up on patreon.com/Brooks Austin at some point this week. And I may, depending on how much Jonathan hates me by the end of the week, may do a Texas defensive study. I'm going to try to milk this sucker, all right? I just need y'all to show up and show out when we produce the content, okay, like y'all always do. Appreciate you. Love you. We'll see you tomorrow.